Chapter 1463. Just you wait, there will be a day sooner or later. Sooner or later, I will make the sacred sect pay the price. Longchen roared in his heart. The chaotic golden codex shone and merged with his body. Longchen opened his interspatial ring and took out some healing pills. Thanks to the many primordial chaos, 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 primordial. Longchen calmed his mind and closed his eyes. A faint brilliance enveloped Longchen's body. His face was like an ancient Buddha, neither sad nor happy. Time passed. Unknowingly, 500 years had passed. Longchen slowly opened his eyes. A dazzling golden light shot out from his eyes. His aura was also condensed to the extreme. I've finally recovered, Longchen heaved a long sigh of relief. His injuries this time were too severe. His internal organs were dislocated, and his limbs and bones were shattered. Even his foundation was affected. Especially when Longchen burned his essence blood to resist the Protector's attack. His foundation was already faintly unstable. Among the 6 golden dragons behind him, one of them was illusory and dim, as if it would shatter at any moment. Even after 500 years, he still had not fully recovered. Longchen let out a sigh of relief. However, he did not regret it now. His foundation could be rebuilt, but he only had one life. Long Mu, how long did I take? Longchen could not help but ask. Long Mu appeared to be very calm. He said, not long. Only 500 years. Longchen nodded. His eyes flickered. 500 years of cultivation had made his aura much more stable. Longchen stood up in the cave and shook off the dust on his body. With a thought, a mirror appeared in front of him. It reflected Longchen's appearance. He put 2 fingers together and turned into a stream of light, cutting off Longchen's long hair. Longchen returned to the state of an elegant young man. He smiled faintly and walked out of the cave. 500 years had passed. He wondered how the Yen tribe was doing. A ball of golden light gathered in Longchen's hand. It was the saint's detection method, but the light spots were completely dim. Longchen sighed. As expected, all the people from the Saint sect had left this place. It's time to leave. Longchen spoke indifferently as he looked into the distance. Runes surged, and a burst of golden light appeared. His figure changed, and he disappeared from where he stood. Help! Help! Longchen was hurrying on his way when he suddenly heard a cry for help. He looked over and saw a girl wearing leather armor falling to the ground. Her face was pale, and behind her, a berserk barbarian bear was chasing after her. At that moment, the girl's foot slipped, and she fell to the ground. The wild bear roared, and a pair of sharp claws was about to tear her throat. The berserk barbarian bear was only at the 2nd level of the primordial chaos prime realm, while the woman had just reached the 1st level of the primordial chaos prime realm. Naturally, she was no match for the berserk barbarian bear. If the berserk barbarian bear's attack landed, the woman would be severely injured, if not killed. Longchen's eyes flashed, and the dragon halberd's shadow fell into the void. It turned into a cold light and directly pierced through the wild bear's forehead. The light in barbarian bear's eyes gradually faded and he fell to the ground. The woman opened her eyes and looked at the scene in disbelief. She knelt to the void and said, "Thank you for saving me, Senior. Jianlan is eternally grateful." Longchen shook his head. Saving her was just a matter of convenience. He smiled, and his eyes flashed. His temperament was calm, and runes surged all over his body. He was ready to leave. At that moment, two figures suddenly rushed out of the forest and helped Jianlan up. "Little ancestor, are you okay?" Jianlan shook her head and looked at the wild bear on the ground. She patted her chest with lingering fear and said, "I'm fine. A senior saved me just now. Otherwise, I would have been in danger. Little ancestor, you're lucky. Next time, don't do such a dangerous thing." A big man in black armor breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this little ancestor was a good person. Otherwise, if something really happened to her, the two of them would definitely have to pay the price. Longchen was about to leave when a big snake suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was only a Hongmeng chaotic prime level first level. Longchen raised his hand and extinguished it. At the same time, the commotion attracted the attention of the big man in black armor. "Who is it? Come out." A big black axe appeared in his hand, exuding a savage aura. His muscles bulged, and he turned into a gust of wind and charged forward. Longchen dodged the attack, but the pitiful snake was chopped into two by the axe. However, Longchen's position was exposed. "Little guy, where are your elders?" The big man in black armor was not too afraid of Longchen. He just thought that he was separated from his elders. After all, Longchen's Hongmeng cultivation was too deceptive. It's just a Hongmeng chaotic prime level first level snake. Look at how scared you are. Ha ha ha. The big man with a black face laughed, thinking that Longchen, who was standing still, was scared by the big snake. On the other hand, Jianlan approached Longchen and looked at him. She then looked back at the two guards behind her and said, "Uncle He Xiong, Uncle Bai Meng, I think he seems to be separated from the tribe. Why don't we take him out with us?" He Xiong was the big man in black armor who killed the big snake. Beside him was a man with white hair. He should be the Bai Meng that Jianlan mentioned. Bai Meng looked at Longchen with disdain and said, "Little ancestor, you know that the demon crystal forest is full of danger. The two of us can't even protect you. If we bring a burden with us, I'm afraid." Was he being considered a burden? Longchen smiled. The two of them were only at the third level of the Grand Mist Primordial Chaos Realm. They were slightly weaker than Captain Liu, so how could they protect him? He walked forward and said, "In that case, Longchen doesn't want to trouble you. I'll take my leave first." "You're quite self-aware," Bai Meng said sarcastically. Bai Meng mocked mercilessly, "Be careful. I'm afraid your strength is not enough. Be careful not to get eaten by the Grand Mist demonic beasts." He Xiong couldn't stand it anymore. He pulled Bai Meng and said, "Bai Meng, stop talking." Only then did he shut his mouth. Longchen didn't care. He didn't care at all and turned to leave. Chapter 1464. Jianlan suddenly walked forward, grabbed Longchen's hand and said, "You're in danger. Come with us. Uncle Bai Meng and Uncle He Xiong are very nice people." "Little ancestor, what are you doing?" He Xiong said. What surprised him was not that Jianlan wanted Longchen to stay. Their family's miss had always been very kind. What surprised him was that Jianlan was so close to Longchen. Longchen didn't feel anything. He looked at He Xiong and Bai Meng behind him and shook his head. "Life and death are determined by the heavens. I'll go by myself." "You're not allowed to go." Jianlan actually threw a tantrum. She was a little similar to Man. She directly hugged Longchen's arm. "Little ancestor, men and women shouldn't be so close," He Xiong said. He was very surprised by Jianlan's actions. Longchen could only helplessly stop and said, "Miss, why do you have to make me stay? I'm just an ordinary Hongmeng. I'll only drag you down." He was still afraid that Jianlan would drag him down. Jianlan still didn't let go of Longchen. She raised her head and said, "It's okay. I let Uncle Bai Meng and Uncle He Xiong protect you. I'm not afraid that you'll be a burden." "There's another reason." Jianlan raised her eyes and stared at Longchen's face for a while before saying, "Because you're good-looking. I'm the most good-looking boy I've ever seen in my life." It turned out that it was because of his face. It was a strange reason. Compared to the men in the periphery who advocated muscles and barbarism, men like Long Chen were indeed rare. However, wasn't this reason a bit too far-fetched? Although Long Chen himself enjoyed it very much. However, Bai Meng stepped forward and pulled Jian Lan over. "Little ancestor, you're too abrupt. Your uncle Bai Meng is right. A person's heart is unpredictable. How can you so easily believe this unknown person?" He Xiong also said. He didn't avoid Long Chen's existence at all. He seemed a little embarrassed. On the contrary, Jian Lan was fearless. She raised her head and said, "So what? It's just a Hongmeng. Can't you two uncles even protect him? He's so good-looking, he can't be a bad guy." The corner of Long Chen's mouth twitched. Judging people by their faces, this girl didn't seem to be very mature. This could be seen from the attitude of the two guards beside her. Gladiolus and He Xiong argued for a while. In the end, they reluctantly nodded and agreed to Long Chen's participation. "Brat, you better watch out. Our little ancestor is not someone you can covet. It's useless to be handsome. Leave as soon as you get out of the magic crystal forest." On the way, Bai Meng found an opportunity to warn Long Chen. Obviously, he didn't like Long Chen. Long Chen nodded. To be honest, it was hard to say who would protect who. However, although Long Chen didn't want to get in touch with Jian Lan wanted to get closer to Long Chen. Unknowingly, the four of them had been walking in the magic crystal forest for more than a month. When they were resting, He Xiong handed a piece of meat to Long Chen and said, "Little brother, we can leave the magic crystal forest in 7 days. At that time, you know what to do, right?" He still couldn't trust Long Chen. They had done their best to protect him along the way. If Long Chen was still not satisfied, they couldn't do anything about it. That was why he reminded him. If it weren't for Jian Lan's strong request, he definitely wouldn't have allowed Long Chen to join the team. Long Chen naturally understood his meaning. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for taking care of me along the way. Long Chen can't thank you enough. After we get out of the magic crystal forest, I will leave by myself." "I hope you do as you say," He Xiong said. He was very satisfied with Long Chen's attitude. He walked away. After a while, Jian Lan ran back and said, "Don't mind what Uncle He Xiong said to you." Long Chen shook his head. The relationship between their teen was really complicated. However, at this moment, there was a sudden explosion in front of them. Bai Meng and He Xiong's expressions changed. They each had their own weapons in their hands. They stared at the forest in front of them with a serious expression. The explosion came from here. A cloud of smoke and dust filled the air. A figure walked out of the smoke. It had a green face and fangs. It was an extremely huge shoe. Its huge pincers swayed in the air. The long hook on its tail shone with a dangerous light. Especially on its back, there was a terrifying human face. It was incomparably ferocious. Its whole body shone with a dangerous light. Not good. It's the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion. Bai Meng couldn't help but exclaim. The demon-faced blue wolf scorpion was known as a killer. It was notorious even among Hong Meng's monster beasts. Its killing methods were extremely cruel. Its armor was indestructible. Moreover, it had terrifying poison. If it grew to a certain level, it could even poison Hong Meng's consolidation realm powerhouses to death. Fortunately, the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion they were facing was only Hong Meng's third-stage chaotic prime realm. They were confident they could deal with it. Damn it. Why would a Hong Meng monster beast like the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion appear in the periphery of the magic crystal forest? He Xiong's face was also ugly. The big axe fell into his hand and his aura shook. To be honest, even if the two of them worked together, he wasn't confident he could win. "Little ancestor, run. Leave this to us. We'll come find you later." Bai Meng ran forward. The long sword in his hand shone brightly. With a shake, sword chi swept out. Although he didn't want Long Chen, he was still very concerned about Jian Lan. Jian Lan's face was filled with fear. She pulled Long Chen and ran, saying, "Don't worry, Uncle He Xiong and the others can do it." "Let's leave first," however, Long Chen sighed. Jianlan was still too young. He could see that the two of them were no match for the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion. Letting Jianlan leave first was just to create an opportunity for her to escape. "Run!" He Xiong roared. Blood chi surged around his body. He condensed all his strength into a pair of huge axes, which turned into a beam of light. The two of them constantly exchanged blows with the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion. Even so, they could only barely stop the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion. Chapter 1465. Little Ancestor. The two of them glared at each other, but it was already too late to save Jianlan. They could only watch as the attack landed on her. Jianlan's cultivation was too low. She couldn't withstand this attack at all. She would die without a doubt. Seeing that the devil-faced blue wolf scorpion's attack was about to land, Long Chen's eyes were cold. His entire body was filled with an inexplicable luster. In an instant, he was ready for battle. He raised his hand and the dragon halberd landed in his hand. It flickered with a cold light and collided with the devil-faced blue wolf scorpion's attack. The dragon halberd carried an indomitable force and repelled the devil-faced blue wolf scorpion's attack. How is this possible? He's actually so strong? He Xiong's face was filled with disbelief. He didn't know that Long Chen's body could explode with such tyrannical power. Bai Meng was also astonished. Now, Long Chen's combat strength had clearly surpassed theirs. When he thought of what they had said before, he immediately felt ashamed. It's really him. Jianlan recognized Long Chen immediately. This power was exactly the same as the person who had saved her in the forest. Jianlan wasn't a brainless person. Naturally, she wouldn't pull Long Chen into the team just because he was good-looking. She was naturally very sensitive to power and aura. When Long Chen first appeared, she already had a faint guess. She just didn't expect that her guess would become reality. However, Long Chen couldn't be bothered with so many things. He only smiled and his eyes were cold. The dragon halberd circled in the air and landed in his hand. Golden light surged in his hand. His aura rose and a jade dragon seemed to appear in his eyes. He hadn't fought in 500 years. It was a good opportunity to use this devil-faced blue wolf scorpion to practice. Be careful. At this moment, He Xiong suddenly warned. After the devil-faced jade wolf scorpion's first attack was fruitless, it actually attacked again. Taking advantage of He Xiong and Bai Meng's momentary daze, it spat out two black-purple balls of light, directly attacking the two of them. Although the two of them tried their best to resist, they couldn't do so in their panic. They fell to the ground, looking weak. A pitch-black aura wrapped around their faces. Clearly, they had been poisoned. Long Chen's expression changed. Runes flickered in the air and circled around his body. His chi and blood surged as he fought with the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion. Don't move. Do you want to die? Bai Meng pulled back He Xiong, who still wanted to continue fighting. The two of them were already poisoned. They could still suppress and neutralize the poison with their cultivation. However, if they continued to fight, the poison would spread throughout their bodies. When that happened, they would die. But what about the little ancestor? Black Bear asked anxiously. Just leave it to him. Bai Meng said. Following the Black Bear's gaze, he saw that Long Chen was fighting with the demon-faced blue wave scorpion. The purplish-black aura and the golden light intertwined. Even if it was only for an instant, the two had already exchanged thousands of blows. At this point, they could only place all their hopes on Long Chen. Roar! The demon-faced blue wolf scorpion seemed to be enraged. With a roar, it waved its pincers in the air. Gusts of wind and sand filled the air, covering its entire body. The purplish-black aura surged, as if it could even corrode the air. It charged directly at Long Chen. Not good. This demon-faced blue wolf scorpion is using its ultimate move. Even an expert of a higher level might not be able to withstand it. Can this little guy do it? Black's face was pale, and his eyes were filled with worry. However, his worry quickly turned into shock. In the next second, Longchen suddenly moved. The dragon halberd flickered in the air, and behind him, shadows of halberds appeared. He was like an emperor, looking down on all living things. I have to say, little scorpion, you're quite capable. Longchen's eyes flickered. His chi and blood surged. Golden light surged all over his body. 81 halberd shadows filled the sky as they charged forward. However, in my eyes, your little bit of strength is still not enough. Longchen said calmly. The halberd shadows exploded, completely enveloping the surrounding space. Within a radius of 100 feet, it seemed to have become Longchen's absolute territory. In this place, he was the absolute king. When the light dissipated, only the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion, whose aura had been rising, could be seen. Its incomparably tough shell had been shattered, and dark green blood flowed out, corroding the surrounding ground. Of its two pincers, only one was left, and the other was drooping. It had clearly lost its ability to fight. Roar! The demon-faced blue wolf scorpion only roared. Its eyes flickered, and a terrifying golden light surged all over its body. Its figure suddenly shrank. It finally realized how terrifying Longchen was, and it actually wanted to escape. However, Longchen's expression did not change. He only sneered and said, "Ha, with such little ability, you actually want to escape? Come back." Longchen raised a hand, and the void trembled. Golden light surged, and the aura surged. It seemed as if even the heavens and earth were trembling. A golden lotus bloomed in the void, and the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion fell into it. Golden lotus god-killing formation. Strangle! Longchen said expressionlessly. The golden lotus bloomed with endless light, and the golden light surged and quickly spiraled. Every ray of light left light on the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion's body. As the last ray of light fell, the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion. Dead. He killed the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion so easily? Who is this person? Black Bear's eyes were filled with shock. At this moment, Longchen still had the aura of a Hongmeng cultivator, but only a fool would think that he was a Hongmeng cultivator. The two of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes, as well as a trace of fear. Jianlan directly rushed over, obviously extremely excited. It's really you. My savior. You've saved me twice. Longchen only smiled and discreetly got rid of her entanglement. He looked at the void and waved his hand, and the dragon halberd returned to his hand. Longchen sighed. With a flash of light, the dragon halberd disappeared. It's nothing. Longchen appeared indifferent. The excitement in Jianlan's eyes grew stronger. Senior, are you the person that father and the others said was pretending to be weak? Hiding your strength? Longchen almost stumbled. What was this little girl thinking? However, he was obviously used to it. He shook his head and did not speak. Chapter 1466. Only now did he know how terrifying Longchen was. When he thought of how they had threatened to protect Longchen, he felt his face burning. Longchen naturally wouldn't argue with them. He waved his hand and said, "It's only human nature. My appearance is already suspicious. You don't have to be like this." In the Hongmeng extreme realm, strength was everything. Although Longchen was younger than He Xiong, his strength was enough to crush Uncle He Xiong. Even though his tone was somewhat arrogant, Uncle He Xiong didn't dare to say anything. He Xiong seemed to have thought of something and said, "Little brother Longchen, my brother Bai Meng has been poisoned by the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion. I'm afraid he can't apologize to you right now. What do you think?" Longchen looked at Bai Meng and smiled. Although the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion's poison was terrifying, it wasn't too strong. With Bai Meng's cultivation, he should have already neutralized it. This was probably just an excuse. After all, Bai Meng was the one who had been mocking and ridiculing Longchen. He didn't dare to apologize in person for fear of being punished by Long Chen. He could only rely on He Xiong. "It's fine. It's just a small matter." Long Chen waved his hand. He wasn't someone who would haggle over every detail. He didn't need to waste time on Bai Meng. He Xiong let out a sigh of relief and secretly gave Bai Meng a hand signal. After that, the group continued to move forward, traversing through the magic crystal forest. Bai Meng had been seriously injured in the battle with the demon-faced blue wolf scorpion. Their strength had been greatly reduced. Not everyone could be as extravagant as Long Chen to use healing pills. Elixir pills were extremely precious in the outer region of the martial ancestors' polar ground. Even though the Jianfeng tribe was a giant in this region, they did not have a lot of elixir pills. Long Chen and them had only met by chance. Naturally, he wouldn't waste his pills on them. He was well aware of the fact that he would be indebted to a single person, but he would also be indebted to a single person when he was alive. "According to our current speed, we should be able to walk out of the magic crystal forest by tomorrow," He Xiong said with excitement in his eyes. As long as they left the magic crystal forest, they would be able to contact the experts in the tribe and be rescued. "That's good." Long Chen nodded. There was not even a trace of emotion in his eyes. "Long Chen, when I get out of here, I'll ask my father to thank you properly," Qianlan said with a serious expression. During this period of time, it was all thanks to Long Chen's help. Otherwise, they would have died without a doubt. With Long Chen's ability, he could have escaped by himself and abandoned them. However, he did not do so. "It's just something I did along the way." "It's nothing," Long Chen said, stirring the bonfire in front of him. He didn't even look up. He really wasn't interested in the Gladiolus' reward. Furthermore, he didn't want to have too much contact with the Gladiolus' tribe. "After we leave the magic crystal forest tomorrow, I should find a chance to leave them," Long Chen said in his mind. The next day, the sun rose from the east and golden rays shone on the earth. Long Chen and his group were ready to go. They didn't encounter any special dangers along the way. Before the sun set, they walked out of the magic crystal forest. "We're finally out. I'm going to find my parents." Qianlan was obviously very happy. The dangers in the magic crystal forest left a deep impression on her and made her yearn for stability even more. "Old Black, have you notified the people in the tribe?" Bai Meng asked. He Xiong nodded and said, "I just contacted them and sent them our address. They should have arrived by now." Then, he wanted to tell Long Chen excitedly, "Little brother Long Chen, however, he realized that Long Chen was nowhere to be found. Now, there were only 3 people left in the team of 4. At this moment, more than 10 rays of light appeared in the sky. It was like a dozen suns, especially the most powerful one. The pressure it gave off was no less than when Long Chen faced the Protector. Hongmeng's 7th stage chaotic prime realm. People from other tribes weren't the only ones gathered here. They were all trembling under this powerful aura. What's going on? Why is there such a strong pressure all of a sudden? Who is it? Jianxing is like the sun. Could it be that the great leader of the Sword Peak tribe has come personally? Sword Peak tribe? Was it that famous big tribe? Rumor has it that their heritage is comparable to those super tribes. Under everyone's respectful gazes, more than 10 suns appeared in the void outside the magic crystal forest as if they were searching for something. Everyone stopped and the light dissipated, revealing their figures. Among them, the lowest level was Hongmeng's 4th stage chaotic prime realm. They were the elders of the Sword Peak tribe. "Father!" The moment Jianlan saw Jianfeng, she immediately rushed over. Jianfeng shook his head. He didn't put on the airs of a Hongmeng's 7th stage chaotic prime realm master. He picked Jianlan up and patted her head dotingly. "Lan, it's great that you're safe. We failed to protect the young master. We deserve to die. Please punish us, leader." He Xiong and Bai Meng suddenly knelt down. The leader of the Jianfeng tribe was Jianfeng. This was a legend passed down from generation to generation. Jianfeng looked at them and said, "Lana is fine. The two of you have worked hard and performed great deeds. What are you guilty of? Because of Lana, the two of you were injured. I feel guilty." Bai Meng still wanted to say something, but Jianfeng glared at him and stopped him. Bai Meng and He Xiong lowered their heads. "All right, treat He Xiong and Bai Meng's injuries. They have sacrificed too much for the future of our Sword Peak tribe. We can't let anything happen to them," Jianfeng said. He turned to look at Jianlan and put on a gentle and kind face. "Lan Daddy will take you home, okay?" Jianlan nodded and took Jianfeng's hand to leave. The others also turned into rainbows, broke through the void, and disappeared into the periphery of the magic crystal forest. However, Longchen shook his head with a cold look in his eyes. He had been hiding around the magic crystal forest. For some reason, Jianfeng gave him a very uncomfortable feeling. TSK, this guy is interesting. What an interesting pair of father and daughter. Longmu suddenly said. However, after Longmu said that, no matter how Longchen called out to him, he didn't appear, which made him feel very helpless. Longmu's temperament was unpredictable, which made him feel very helpless. Even though it was just Longchen, he gradually trusted him more and more. This kind of feeling was similar to the ancient Saint Emperor in the past. The feeling of having someone in his body was really strange. Chapter 1467. TSK, this guy is interesting. What an interesting father and daughter. Longmu suddenly said. However, after Longmu said that, no matter how Longchen called out to him, he did not appear, which made him feel very helpless. Longmu's inexplicable words aroused his curiosity, but he did not tell him the reason, so he could only shake his head with a bitter smile. Longchen smiled, and then his whole body exuded a golden aura. He raised his aura to Hongmeng's third stage chaotic prime realm. This was also one of the secret techniques that Longmu taught him. Although it was not as good as the blood puppet technique, it was more practical. It could change a person's temperament, and even disguise their cultivation. For Longchen, although his strength was outstanding, his cultivation was too low. If he rushed back alone, it would save him a lot of trouble. "Let's go to the magic crystal forest." Longchen waved to the lush magic crystal forest behind him, and his figure changed, disappearing on the spot. After flying for an unknown period of time, Longchen stopped and looked at his surroundings. "Longmu, do you know how to get to the Yen tribe?" Longchen asked. The magic crystal forest was vast, even comparable to the size of 10 ancient sacred divine worlds, so it was naturally extraordinary. His current location was completely different from the terrain when he first entered. After traveling for a long time, he realized that it was not easy to return to the Yen tribe. "How would I know? Do you really think I'm a slave?" Longmu said angrily. Longchen smiled bitterly. He had a map, but the Yen tribe's map was not particularly complete. It was only a part of it. Longchen's location had disappeared, and he could not find his current location at all. Now that things had come to this, he had no other choice but to place all his hopes on others. His speed was very fast. After traveling for more than a month, he finally met a tribe. However, this tribe was not very big, even smaller than the Yen tribe. It was just an ordinary tribe struggling in the outer area. The strongest person in this tribe was only at the Hongmeng first stage primordial chaos realm. Longchen exchanged some Hongmeng monster beast materials for a map of their tribe. Only then did he know that his current location was more than 1,000,000 kilometers away from the Yen tribe. Longchen smiled bitterly. Left with no other choice, he could only choose to hurry. The space around the martial ancestor continent was chaotic, making it impossible to travel through space. Coupled with the fact that the Hongmeng's extreme realm was extremely tough, ordinary Hongmeng chaotic primes could only shake it. However, if one wanted to open up a space tunnel, that was something that only Hongmeng's consolidation realm experts could do. Therefore, he could only rely on his own strength to advance. "Let's rest here for a while." Longchen looked at a towering giant city not far away with a calm gaze. He had been traveling for too long, so he needed to rest and replenish his supplies. "Kid, what are you looking at? Go to the back and line up." At the entrance of the giant city, an armored guard said impatiently, "The entrance fee is 3 Hongmeng coins." Hongmeng coins were the common currency in the Hongmeng extreme realm. From low to high, they were divided into Hongmeng coins and Hongmeng primordial chaos coins, Hongmeng unity coins, Hongmeng yuan realm coins, and so on. The exchange rate between each level of currency and the currency of the next level was 100. Moreover, Hongmeng coins were not as simple as they seemed on the surface. Hongmeng coins were condensed from Hongmeng coins. Not only could they be used for spending, but they could also be used for cultivation. 10,000 Hongmeng coins could replenish all the power of a Hongmeng realm expert. The same went for the power of a realm expert. Longchen knew that he could not cause trouble, so he took out 3 sparkling crystals and walked in. These were his spoils of war. He had killed many people in the magic crystal forest, so their wealth naturally belonged to Longchen. It's really prosperous. Longchen walked on the road and saw countless carriages and horses. It was many times more luxurious than the Yen tribe. However, he was not in the mood to admire these things. He casually walked into an inn and asked, "Boss, how much are the rooms here?" The boss was also a Hongmeng realm cultivator with a mustache. When he saw Longchen, he did not even raise his head and said, "The prices are posted on the wall. Take a look yourself." This attitude was really uncomfortable. Longchen shook his head and looked at the prices. The rooms in the inn were divided into 3 categories, upper, middle, and lower. The lowest room was 50 Hongmeng coins a night, the middle room was 100 Hongmeng coins a night, and as for the upper level, it would cost 2 Hongmeng mixed yuan coins. There were even higher level courtyards, and the prices were even more terrifying. The price for a night's stay was 10 Hongmeng mixed yuan coins. "Have you chosen?" the boss said indifferently. Longchen did not disguise his strength after entering the city. He used his original cultivation, so naturally, no one thought highly of him. "I'll rent a courtyard for a month first," Longchen said indifferently. With a wave of his hand, 300 crystals emitting rich Hongmeng energy appeared and landed in front of the boss. This scene shocked the boss. He did not expect Longchen to be so rich. He immediately put on a flattering smile and said, "Young master, I have eyes but did not recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive me." Come, I'll bring you to the courtyard." Longchen only nodded and followed the boss. However, this scene was not only seen by the boss. There were crooks mixed in with the honest folk in the inn, and many eyes were already fixed on Longchen. "Big brother, this kid looks like a fat sheep. He should be the young master of some big tribe. He's so silly." In a corner of the hall, a short man leaned against another person and said, "Don't worry, there's a formation in the courtyard. We can't deal with him, but we don't need to worry about this at all. When he leaves, we'll have plenty of opportunities. Young master, what do you think of this courtyard?" The boss said flatteringly, and his attitude was very humble. The inside of the inn was called a space. In front of him was a courtyard that was about 300 acres of land. It was filled with spiritual energy, and there were pavilions and terraces. The decorations were very elegant. Not bad. Longchen stepped into the courtyard. The Hongmeng energy in this courtyard was even above the magic crystal forest. Don't look at the price of this courtyard. It's more than worth it. There are all kinds of cultivation items in the courtyard. Moreover, this courtyard is built on the veins of the city. It's filled with spiritual energy, and it's very beneficial for cultivation," the boss explained to Longchen. Chapter 1468. In that case, I won't disturb young master's cultivation. The owner was good at reading people's expressions. Naturally, he knew that Longchen was a little impatient and immediately found an excuse to leave. Longchen found a cultivation room and sat down. When he cultivated, the array under him operated crazily. In just a breath, the entire room was filled with the power of the earth vein and condensed into mist. A few days later, Longchen opened his eyes. The cultivation speed here was at least 10 times faster than the outside world. The 300 Hongmeng mixed element coins were worth it. Anyway, they were things that he had snatched from Captain Liu and the others. He did not feel the pinch at all when spending them. I wonder if there's anything delicious here. Longchen stood up and muttered to himself. Although he could survive without food and absorb the spirit energy of heaven and earth, Longchen still could not let go of his desire for good food. He got up and sat down in the hall of the inn. The owner naturally knew Longchen, a rich young master. He came over and asked, "Young master, what would you like to eat? We have the freshest Hongmeng monster meat here. It's all obtained from the magic crystal forest." Longchen naturally did not believe his nonsense. The magic crystal forest was 3 to 4 years away from here. This guy was bragging without thinking. Longchen raised his hand and a Hongmeng monster beast appeared. It landed on the ground and attracted the attention of many people. Isn't that a berserk bear? It's comparable to a Hongmeng second stage chaotic prime expert. This kid hit it well. This corpse is definitely worth more than 2,000 Hongmeng mixed element coins. TSK, I'm a little naughty. This stinking brat is flaunting his wealth. I wonder if he can withstand his wealth. Jealous, envious, and even greedy gazes were directed at Longchen, but he didn't care at all. He said indifferently, "Boss, this is the freshest ingredient. Help me process it, and I'll eat this." The boss was also a little shocked, but he still wiped his sweat and said, "Young master, this is not in line with the rules. Who comes here to eat with their own ingredients?" Longchen didn't care at all and said, "It's just a rule. I'll pay you the processing fee according to the original price of the dish. This shouldn't be considered breaking the rules, right?" He didn't need to pay for the ingredients. He only needed to process the ingredients, and he could still get the original price. The boss naturally wouldn't miss such an opportunity. He smiled and said, "In that case, I can only make an exception this time." This berserk barbaric bear was so huge. If he secretly left something behind, even Longchen wouldn't know. This was a profitable business. Longchen naturally understood this, but for the sake of his stomach, he didn't care about this rule. The berserk barbarian bear was carried down, but there were quite a few people who came over. He fancied Longchen's wealth and wanted to befriend Longchen. Jun Tian of the Berserk Dragon Tribe. "May I know your name?" "Io, little brother, you're so handsome. I wonder if you're interested in coming to my room to discuss the mysteries of yin and yang intercourse. Hey! How about we drink a cup of wine together?" Longchen wasn't interested in them at all. He directly rejected them, which angered quite a few people. What's there to be proud of? Don't show off your wealth. You don't even know that you've been targeted," a man said fiercely after being rejected. The speed of the restaurant was very fast. In only 4 to 6 hours, plates of delicious dishes were brought up. Longchen's eyes shone brightly. The entire berserk barbarian bear was processed into hundreds of dishes. The ingredients were processed very well. The restaurant owner had put in a lot of effort. With his digestive ability, hundreds of dishes were just enough to fill his stomach. Longchen began to eat heartily, but the others couldn't eat anymore. "This guy, how are we going to eat?" The group of people gnashed their teeth in hatred. Longchen's dishes were so fragrant, how could they eat? However, at this time, 2 beggars in ragged clothes suddenly barged into the inn. An old beggar brought along a little brat and blocked him behind them. "Owner, do a good deed and reward us with some food." The old beggar begged the owner. The little brat hid behind the old beggar. He lowered his head. "What do you take Arn for? Get lost." The owner didn't hold back and directly wanted to chase them away. The old beggar suddenly knelt down and kowtowed to the owner. "Owner, please reward us with some food. Just a little bit." The little beggar looked at them, not knowing what to do. His eyes were filled with confusion and fear. "Mother Fastress Kerr, you 2 beggars, what are you doing here? Are you affecting the business? Get lost. Otherwise, I'll kill you." The owner directly roared. The old beggar trembled inside. He pulled the little beggar's hand and was about to leave. At this time, Longchen raised his eyes. Long Wu also appeared at this time. "This child has a trace of the Dragon Clan's bloodline. If you can help him, please help him." His tone was somewhat sorrowful. Although the Hongmeng Dragon Clan was destroyed, there were still some creatures with the Dragon Clan's bloodline that survived. For example, the little beggar in front of him had a trace of the Dragon Clan's bloodline. Long Mu sensed it. "Wait a minute, come and eat." Longchen called out to the two. "Young master, this." The owner was a little stunned. He really didn't understand what Longchen was thinking. The old beggar was also a little surprised. Naturally, he knew that the food in front of Longchen was expensive. He was extremely reserved and didn't know what to do. "Thank you." However, in the end, he glanced at the little beggar beside him and walked over. A third-level primordial chaos realm in Hongmeng, and the other has a trace of the Dragon Clan's bloodline. He's actually in such dire straits. Longchen thought to himself. He shook his head. Longchen sat opposite the two beggars. Even though the old beggar hid very well, he still couldn't escape Longchen's eyes. Longchen's eyes. "You eat first." The old beggar picked up some food for the little beggar. From the words and actions of the two of them, it could be seen that they were also people who had enjoyed glory and wealth. It was just that they might have fallen for some reason that they ended up like this. The three of them didn't say anything and just ate at the same table. The atmosphere was incomparably harmonious. However, after only half an hour, this harmony was broken. 7 or 8 Hongmeng primordial chaos realms suddenly rushed in from outside the door. They were wearing battle armor and exuded a murderous aura. The surrounding guests all looked over, not knowing what was going on. Chapter 1469. I'm afraid. The little beggar was terrified and hid in the old beggar's arms. The atmosphere in the entire hall suddenly condensed at this moment. Everyone's eyes all looked over, but they didn't dare to have any disturbances. The weakest in this team was at the second level of the chaotic prime realm in Hongmeng. They couldn't afford to offend them at all. I know, this is the Black Dragon army of the Black Dragon tribe. They are one of the super tribes in the periphery. Why would they appear here? Rumor has it that there was a riot in the Black Dragon tribe. After the old leader died, his younger brother was unwilling to submit and seized power. It seems that these two guys are the remnants of the Black Dragon tribe. How pitiful. They should have been priceless, but now they have become beggars. The world is unpredictable. Longchen seemed to have thought of something. He raised his eyes and looked at the two beggars. The old beggar was no longer a yes man. A divine light appeared in his eyes, and his aura rose. He released the cultivation of the third level of the chaotic prime realm in Hongmeng. At this point, no matter how much he pretended, it was useless. He bowed to Longchen. Thank you for the meal. If Long Kong can survive, I will repay this kindness. As he said that, he directly blocked the little beggar behind him and faced the Black Dragon army. He wasn't afraid at all. Long Kong, are you brainless? As long as you follow the leader, with your cultivation, how could you end up like this? Panicking like a stray dog, how ridiculous. The leader of the Black Dragon army said with a condescending attitude. He secretly waved his hand. Because the others had already trapped Long Kong. A long saber appeared in Long Kong's hand. It was shining and emitting cold light. It was incomparably sharp. His original strength was at the 4th level of the chaotic prime realm in Hongmeng. However, he was hunted down during his escape and fell to the 3rd level of the chaotic prime realm in Hongmeng. His injuries hadn't recovered yet. However, he wasn't afraid. He just stared at Longli and spat. Longli, don't think that everyone in this world is a mercenary like you. The leader you speak of is not worthy. Even if I, Long Kong, die, I am not willing to submit to someone who deceives the world. Long Kong's voice was powerful and aggressive. I really don't understand your loyalty. Long Li only shook his head and looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. He said, "Then you can accompany your loyalty to hell." After saying that, a bright light surged and 8 black dragon army soldiers trapped Long Kong and the little beggar. Long Li took a step forward and said, "This time, I won't give you another chance." The whole formation spiraled and an amazing aura rose. Light surged and trapped Long Kong in it. A huge shadow appeared and was about to fall on Long Kong and the little beggar's body. "Young master, Long Kong has let the leader down." Long Kong's defense was completely useless. His arms were hanging down and dripping with blood. It was obvious that this was the price he had to pay to resist. But even so, he was still helpless. "Die. I will use your heads to pave the way for my future." Long Li laughed. Unscrupulous. Long Kong hugged the little beggar tightly and was ready to die together. However, at this time, a golden light appeared. It was as if the world was splitting apart. The power of the formation that Long Li gathered suddenly shattered and turned into a sky full of light feathers falling to the ground and disappearing into the void. "Who is it? How dare you disturb my Black Dragon Army's work? Are you not afraid of the Black Dragon tribe's revenge?" Long Li said with some exasperation. Looking around, he found that the person who made the move was Long Chen, who had been ignored by him. Long Kong also opened his eyes. His gaze flickered as he looked at Long Chen. "Brother, please stop. The Black Dragon tribe isn't something you can provoke." Long Chen's cultivation was only in Hongmeng. He thought that Long Chen had used some kind of treasure to break the move. However, Long Li sneered. "Ah, it's too late for you to stop now. A little Hongmeng cultivator dares to interfere with our Black Dragon tribe's affairs. Ah, who do you think you are?" A group of people surrounded them, and the onlookers kept shaking their heads. "It's none of my business. This guy is still too irrational. Is the Black Dragon tribe's affairs something a little Hongmeng cultivator like him can touch? Overestimating his own strength? This kid will die miserably. It's a pity that he has so much money." A voice came from a corner. But even if so many people were not optimistic about Long Chen, he was still fearless. He just shook his head and said, "I hate it when people disturb me when I eat. Do you know that?" He was still sitting. The voice had a penetrating power, and it made Long Li shake. But soon, his face became ferocious. "Still putting on airs? Kill him." Long Li could not control his anger when he thought about how he had been intimidated by a little kid. With a wave of his hand, a Hongmeng second-level chaotic prime flew to his death. He summoned his aura and wanted to capture Long Chen. In his opinion, this was the easiest thing to do. But at this moment, Long Chen's eyes flickered and his entire body seemed to be filled with an indescribable aura. An indescribable brilliance surged as he raised his hand. The golden light appeared and was unstoppable. It pierced through the man's forehead. Not good. The man did not even have time to react. He could only let out a cry of surprise before he was frozen in the void. The golden light dimmed, revealing the essence of the golden light. It was a chopstick. It was just a chopstick, but it easily killed a Hongmeng second-level chaotic prime. The group of people could finally face Long Chen. "You have some skills. You actually hid your cultivation. I was wondering why you dared to interfere. So this is your confidence." Long Li was stunned, but he quickly regained his composure. In his opinion, Long Chen was deliberately hiding his cultivation. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to be so powerful. Long Chen shook his hands, and the remaining members of the Black Dragon Army each took a position. Vibrating runes surged and flashed, targeting Long Chen. But Long Chen did not care. He just smiled and his eyes were indifferent. "Little brother, let me help you." Long Kong held his long saber and wanted to help, but he was rejected by Long Chen. His current appearance was really not good enough to look at. Long Chen just sneered. The dragon halberd appeared in his hand. He finally stood up. The void trembled faintly, and only a dragon's roar was heard. Long Chen raised his hand, and divine light shone brightly. You guys are affecting my appetite. Chapter 1470. Bursts of overwhelming light surged and finally landed on the Black Dragon army. The light was so hot that they could not open their eyes. He's so powerful. Many people could not help but swallow their saliva. They were obviously extremely shocked. They did not expect Longchen to have such combat strength. This also made some cultivators who had evil thoughts about Longchen's huge wealth give up their evil thoughts. The greed in their eyes finally turned into calmness and silence. Although Hongmeng dollars were good, they had to be alive to spend it. Longchen's eyes shone with a faint light. He controlled his power perfectly. Except for the place where the Black Dragon army was, the surrounding environment was not damaged at all. This kind of control of power had reached a terrifying level. Damn it! I'm going to kill you. A figure suddenly rushed out of the golden light. It was Long Li. His eyes were crazy and his armor was shattered. Countless hideous wounds covered his body. He looked miserable. He directly attacked. A burst of light surged and a divine light condensed in his hand. It seemed to have the power to split the sky and earth. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Go to hell. Long Li's attack arrived in an instant. He wanted to directly penetrate Longchen's chest. Longchen sneered and a dragon halberd appeared in his hand. A cold light flashed and like a cold star, it obliterated Long Li's attack. After all, Long Li was only a third-stage chaotic prime from Hongmeng. Compared to the Saint sect, his strength and foundation were not just a little bit weaker. Longchen's dragon halberd vibrated and shone brightly. After destroying Long Li's attack, Long Li's arm was chopped off. Ah! Long Li curled up on the ground in pain as he watched his arm being melted by the golden light. The body of a Hongmeng chaotic prime was extremely strong. Even a severed arm could be regrown. However, Longchen condensed Dao Law and power in his severed arm. As long as Long Li's strength did not surpass Longchen's, his arm would never be able to recover. Yellow hair dispersed, and the rest of the Black Dragon army were all lying on the ground, their breathing weak. You should rejoice that I didn't use too much force. Longchen sat down again. His tone was cold, and his gaze was incomparably sharp. With his current strength, killing the Black Dragon army was as easy as lifting his hand. However, he didn't want to increase the number of people he killed. Long Li swallowed a pill, and his aura recovered a little. He looked at Longchen in horror, and a trace of fear and resentment flashed in his eyes. Let's go. The others struggled to stand up, but their momentum was completely gone. Long Li leaned against the door, looked at Long Kong and said, Long Kong, you and that evil creature of yours must die. He can protect you once, but he can't protect you forever. Scram! Longchen's eyes turned cold. With a wave of his sleeve, a gust of wind rolled up and drove them out. Where did this kid come from? He didn't even give face to the Black Dragon army. Could he be a descendant of another super tribe? That's right. Look at his strength and wealth. Only a super tribe can cultivate someone like him, and he's definitely outstanding. Phew. It's all thanks to the Black Dragon army's probing. Otherwise, if I really attacked him, wouldn't I be sending myself to his death? The people in the hall saw Long Li running away in panic, and they couldn't help but look at Longchen in awe. In the world of practitioners, the strong were respected, and Longchen's strength was worthy of their respect. Longchen sat down, but the little beggar and Long Kong were a little restrained. After all, they had seen Longchen's true strength. Long Kong, thank you for saving my life. Long Kong bowed respectfully to Longchen. He even pulled the little beggar, a Yuan, quickly thank your benefactor. Long Yuan's eyes were a little confused. He knelt down in front of Longchen, kowed out 3 times, and said, thank you for saving my life. Longchen just shook his head and said, it's just a matter of convenience. Hurry up and eat. You won't affect my mood to eat, right? Long Kong and Long Yuan immediately got up and sat opposite Longchen. But they were incomparably respectful, as if they were afraid of something. Finally, this meal was finished. How could a single violent barbaric bear be the appetites of 3 people? Soon, there was only a pile of leftovers left on the table. Long Kong got up and bowed to Long Chen. "Your Excellency, the Black Dragon tribe is not as simple as you think. Although it's weakened after the faction war, it's still a super tribe. In order to save us, I'm afraid you've offended the Black Dragon tribe. Please be careful." He was reminding Long Chen. After that, he was ready to take Long Yuan's little hand and leave this place. "It's just a Black Dragon tribe. It's nothing." Long Chen shook his head and looked at the 2 people who were about to leave. He shook his head and said, "And, you're leaving just like that?" Long Kong stopped, and there was some fear in his eyes. "What do you want?" He thought that Long Chen was blackmailing him, so naturally he was very vigilant. He guarded Long Yuan behind him and confronted Long Chen. "Don't worry. Look at you. What's worth me scheming for? What I want is that child. It's better to give him to me than to be taken by you," Long Chen said faintly. His eyes were calm, and he was waiting for Long Kong's answer. Long Kong hesitated for a moment. Long Yuan's little hand grasped him tightly, as if he was afraid that Long Kong would leave. Long Yuan had suffered too much with Long Kong. If he could follow Long Chen, he would definitely not be like this now. But he and Long Chen had only met once. Was he really trustworthy? Long Kong's eyes showed a touch of thought, and he said, "I'm sorry, sir. I can take care of my family's young master. Thank you for your kindness." That was a rejection. Even in this situation, Long Kong could not believe Long Chen. "You don't believe me?" Long Chen looked at their departing backs, shook his head quietly, and said in his heart. After so many years after the destruction of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan, there were fewer and fewer Hongmeng creatures who still had the blood of the Dragon Clan in their bodies. So Long Chen had the idea of taking care of Long Yuan, but unfortunately it failed. He sighed softly. With Long Kong's seriously injured body, there was no way he could protect Long Yuan. The fate of the 2 had long been decided. However, at this time, Long Mu's exasperated voice suddenly came from the Dragon Palace. "Long Chen, hurry up and bring that little guy to me. Are you an idiot?" Chapter 1471. He had never seen Long Mu so excited before. Could it be that the child had some kind of secret? Long Mu finally calmed down, but there was still some excitement in his words. "Long Chen, I'm not sure, but you should hurry up and chase after them. If that's really the case, then this is a great opportunity for you." Long Mu had never been a person who spoke without thinking. It seemed that the child really had some kind of big secret. Not good. Long Chen seemed to have suddenly realized something. Long Kong and the others were seriously injured, and the Black Dragon tribe would not let them go so easily, so the 2 of them were now in danger. In any case, they would not give up chasing Long Kong and the others. If something were to happen, what would happen to Long Yuan? Chase! Long Chen's eyes flashed, and his figure flashed as he chased after them. After Long Kong and Long Yuan left the inn, they did not notice that there were many pairs of eyes staring at them with hatred behind them. One of them was hidden in the shadows, but he only had one arm. It was Long Li, whose arm had been cut off by Long Chen. "Captain, what should we do now?" one of the Black Dragon Army soldiers asked. The Black Dragon Army had been destroyed by Long Chen, and they were afraid that they would not be able to chase after Long Kong. Long Li gritted his teeth and looked at the backs of Long Kong and Long Kong as they left. He couldn't afford to offend Long Chen, but he placed all his resentment on Long Kong. "Don't worry, it's not like we're the only team chasing after these 2 guys. The 3rd captain is nearby. We'll be able to contact them immediately. When the time comes, I will make them beg for death." Sure enough, after hearing the news of the 3rd captain, the group of Black Dragon Army soldiers finally regained their momentum, and their eyes flashed with excitement. "3rd captain, is it really the 3rd captain? His strength ranks 3rd in our Black Dragon Army. he's a 5th level Hongmeng Primordial Chaos Prime. With his help, those 2 bastards will be captured easily. With the 3rd captain taking action, there will be no problem at all. We will be much more relaxed, haha. And that arrogant and despotic brat just now, we absolutely cannot forgive him. We must teach him a lesson. Long Li's eyes were filled with resentment. The 3rd captain was one of the 3 captains of the Black Dragon tribe. Although he had a different surname, his strength was extraordinary. He was respected in the Black Dragon tribe and was already a 5th stage chaotic prime in Hongmeng. Brat, just wait for your death. Long Li looked at the inn and saw Long Chen's figure appear. It wouldn't be long before he was ready to kill this guy. Captain, what should we do now? Should we follow them? A member of the Black Dragon army asked. Long Li nodded. Let's follow them. Otherwise, the 3rd captain and the others will be able to take action immediately. That will save us the trouble. Long Kong and Long Yuan went out of the city and disguised themselves as 2 little beggars again. In the void outside the city, Long Kong suddenly stopped, looked behind, and shook his head sadly. Long Li, I know you're following us. Come out. A weapon appeared in Long Kong's hand, and his aura fluctuated as he looked behind him. Long Li laughed loudly, and his eyes were extremely sharp. He walked out of the void with a faint brilliance lingering around him. Long Li, I really admire you. You know that I'm following you, but you're still so arrogant. TSK, TSK, TSK. You chose this place for your own grave. You have good taste. Long Kong's aura was heavy, and he stood in front of Long Yuan. His eyes flashed with brilliance. So what? Let's fight. Either you die, or I live. He could feel that the other party was similar to him in terms of injuries. He was confident in dealing with them. His aura fluctuated, and he rushed over. However, Long Li was too lazy to fight him head-on, and he dodged. The other members of the Black Dragon army also dodged Long Kong's attack with him, and at the same time, restricted his movements. What are you doing? Kill me if you can. Long Kong's chest heaved up and down. Obviously, he had consumed a lot of energy. Long Li just laughed. His whole body surged with brilliance, and he said indifferently. Long Kong, are you really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? The 3rd captain will be here soon. At that time, you will suffer, ha ha ha. He was stalling for time. As long as the 3rd captain arrived, Long Kong would undoubtedly die. As for fighting head-on with Long Kong, he wasn't that stupid. Damn it. Damn it. Long Kong finally panicked. He was naturally very clear about the prestige of the 3rd captain. Even if he was in his peak state, he wouldn't be able to help at all. For a time, his attack became even more fierce. He wanted to rush out of the encirclement created by Long Li. He knew that once the 3rd captain arrived, death would be waiting for him. Get out of my way! Long Kong roared, but his attack missed again. Long Li saw this, laughed, and mercilessly ridiculed. Long Kong, give up. You absolutely can't escape. You and your evil creature will all die. Long Kong despaired, and he pulled Long Yuan's small hand with a tragic expression. He knew that everything was over. It was a pity for Long Yuan. He suddenly regretted. If he had promised Long Chen in the inn that he would give Long Yuan to him, the result would definitely be much better than now. Young master, I'm sorry. Old leader, Long Kong is useless. I've failed to live up to your trust. Long Kong suddenly looked up to the sky and roared. However, at this moment, a golden light appeared in the sky again. A halberd appeared and nailed a member of the Black Dragon army to death in the sky. With a flash of golden light, a figure appeared. His aura rose and he stood in the sky. Long Chen's eyes were sharp. Runes surged all over his body, and his blood surged. It's you again. Since you didn't kill us at that time, why do you want to get involved in this mess? Long Li's eyes showed a touch of shock. He really didn't expect that Long Chen would catch up. Damn it. He just met Long Kong by chance. Why did he have to meddle in other people's business? The current Long Chen, he was no match for him at all. Long Chen didn't have the slightest intention to pay attention to this person. His eyes were looking at Long Yuan and Long Kong. Why are you here? Long Kong was also stunned. He didn't know why Long Chen would appear here. Chapter 1472. Long Chen was expressionless. His halberd vibrated and all the Black Dragon Army soldiers appeared in front of Long Kong and Long Yuan. Long Chen said indifferently, "Are you willing to give this child to me now? Give him to me, my bodyguard. I will protect your safety. If you don't give him to me, I can only wait for them to kill you and then take this child away." The meaning of his words was self-evident. Cultivators followed the law of the jungle. Since Third Longmu valued this child so much, he had to get it no matter what. He said that he gave Long Kong 2 choices, but in fact, it was only one. At this point, he no longer had any other choice. Long Kong gritted his teeth and said, "Please treat my young master well. This is something that the old leader left for him. I hope you can take good care of it and give it to him when he reaches adulthood." He looked like he was entrusting a child to Long Chen and handed a small box to him. The box looked like something good, but Long Chen would not steal a child's belongings. The whole process took no more than 2 breaths. Long Chen's halberd vibrated and shone brightly. Endless brilliance appeared and the heaven and earth trembled faintly. Countless halberd phantoms appeared and once again drowned Long Li and the others. This time, he did not hold back. These guys, if he killed them, then so be it. But at this moment, there was a sudden turbulence in the void. A furious voice was heard, "Who dares to kill my Black Dragon Army soldiers? Get out of my way!" This voice was like rolling thunder, covering the heaven and earth. Even Long Chen was stunned at this moment. Along with this roar, there was a divine light that rushed forward and directly shattered Long Chen's attack. That wasn't the end. That divine light was vast and mighty as it charged towards Long Chen and the other 2. Long Chen roared. He knew that a fierce character had come and he could not meet force with force. The halberd vibrated and divine light appeared, turning into a golden dragon that directly appeared and shattered this move. Then, with one hand holding Long Kong and the other holding Long Yuan, his figure appeared and rushed out. "Third Captain! Third Captain is here! We're saved! Haha! That guy is finished. The Third Captain will definitely kill them." The members of the Black Dragon Army seemed to have realized something, and their faces lit up with excitement. The Third Captain was a godlike figure in the Black Dragon tribe. It was not an existence that they could come into contact with at their level. A mere ant dares to meddle in the affairs of my Black Dragon tribe? Die! Suddenly, there was a burst of energy in the air. A figure appeared and roared. It was 8 feet tall. His entire body was filled with a wild and austere aura. He wondered how many people he had to kill to condense such a dense killing intent. The Third Captain was very fast. A 5th-stage chaotic prime in Hongmeng was far from someone Long Chen could deal with. Golden Lotus God-killing formation. Long Chen's eyes were sharp, and his whole body was surging with an inexplicable brilliance. The divine light of heaven and earth surged, and bursts of divine brilliance appeared. Golden lotuses bloomed one after another, trying to stop the Third Captain. Child's play. Now, let me show you what absolute power is. Ha ha ha. The Third Captain roared, and the murderous aura around him condensed into a solid form. It turned into a long saber that floated in the void. It was vast and boundless, and black. Red killing intent. All the golden lotuses were shattered in front of this divine saber. They did not even stop the Third Captain for 5 breaths of time. A 5th-stage chaotic prime in Hongmeng was too strong. Long Chen's attack had no effect at all. I didn't expect such a ruthless character to exist. I was a little careless this time. Long Chen could not help but shake his head and smile bitterly. He secretly thought that he had been a little reckless today. He thought that his opponents were only Long Li and the others. he did not expect that there would be a fifth-stage chaotic prime in Hongmeng. It was quite troublesome. Die! Weren't you very arrogant just now? Long Li looked at Long Chen, who was being annihilated by the attack, and laughed. He wanted nothing more than to grind Long Chen's bones to dust. Long Chen shouted coldly. His eyes were extremely sharp. The phantom of his Yuan spirit appeared behind him, and the 6 golden dragons merged into his body. The light in his eyes seemed to condense into substance. He raised his arm and roared. The dragon halberd shook the void, and his vitality surged. Reverberation. Once again, he rushed towards the third captain's attack. A fifth-stage chaotic prime in Hongmeng was very strong. Long Chen knew that he was no match for him, but escaping was not a problem. Unfortunately, he was not alone now. He still had 2 burdens with him, so there was no way for him to escape. Divine light flickered all over his body as he continued to fight with the third captain. The distance between them was constantly shrinking. They were only a kilometer away, but in the blink of an eye, they had closed the gap. A kilometer was just a few breaths of time for them. Long Chen's expression was very solemn. The current situation was very bad for him. He roared and wanted to attack again. The third captain sneered and said expressionlessly, "Go to hell." The shadow of a divine saber appeared. Long Chen's figure appeared in the void. He wanted to kill him completely. This move instantly crossed the endless void. Long Chen used all his strength, but in the end, he only managed to destroy the divine saber. However, his speed was also slowed down, and the third captain closed the gap again. Damn it! Long Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and frantically thought of a countermeasure. At this time, Long Kong seemed to have suddenly sensed something. He suddenly laughed and stopped in place. "Your Excellency, please take care of my young master." Long Kong is very grateful. Today, Long Kong knows that it will be difficult for him to survive. "I am willing to use my life's blood essence to give Your Excellency a chance to breathe. Ron. Take care of my young master." "Old Captain, Long Kong is here." Long Kong was originally seriously injured. Even if he escaped, he did not have much time left. In the end, Long Kong made a choice. He sacrificed himself to create a chance for Long Chen to escape. This was his last ray of light. Long Kong's body suddenly surged with endless brilliance. His chi and blood were tyrannical. His eyes were burning with boundless heat. His body was shaking like a huge ball from the terrifying power. However, this power was too great. Long Chen's eyes were incomparably sharp. His whole body was filled with endless divine light. His figure changed and disappeared. He looked at Long Kong and quickly retreated with Long Yuan. This was Long Kong's choice. It was also the opportunity he created for Long Chen before he died. He could not waste it. "Long Kong, you are crazy." Chapter 1473. You actually used the secret technique of our clan to self-destruct? Long Kong, are you crazy? Even your soul will be destroyed, and you will never be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. The third captain roared as he mobilized all the power in his body. Self-destruct with the secret technique was the most terrifying move. It burned all of one's cultivation and soul. Once such a self-destruction started, it was irreversible. This technique was both self-destruction and a mysterious technique. Such a technique was far more powerful than self-destruction by ordinary cultivators. Long Kong had self-destructed at the third level of the Hongmeng chaotic prime realm. Even if the third captain was at the fifth level of the Hongmeng chaotic prime realm, he would definitely die if he was caught in the center of the explosion. As long as it's for the young master, this life is nothing. Long Kong laughed. He knew that even if Long Chen could win this battle, it was impossible for him to protect Long Yuan. Instead of that, he might as well use his remaining body to protect the two of them and leave. The terrifying power tore holes in his skin as he charged towards the crowd once again. Everyone was unable to dodge in time. If they touched him, they would definitely die. Finally, Long Kong could no longer control the power in his body. He smiled bitterly and stopped suppressing his power. He looked back at the direction Long Chen and sighed, "Your Excellency, please take good care of the young master. My life won't be in vain." He looked at the third captain. The distance was too far. Even if he self-destructed, he wouldn't be able to kill him. Long Kong sighed and shook his head. "Let's go. Come with me." Long Kong's entire body was surging with a terrifying and tyrannical light. An extremely hot divine light appeared and completely suppressed all the Black Dragon army. The divine light swept across the sky, and the world lost its color. At this moment, Long Kong seemed to have become the sun. The void trembled, and everything within a radius of 10,000 miles was destroyed. Long Kong had created enough time for Long Chen. He had already escaped the range of Long Kong's self-destruction. Even so, he could still feel a destructive force behind him. Long Chen's figure shook. He looked back and his body was filled with endless divine light. His speed also increased a little. He was a little moved by Long Kong's tragedy. "I will remember you." Long Chen stopped for a moment, bowed towards Long Kong's position, and then quickly left. He didn't know how the third captain and the others were doing, but he still needed to escape and find a safe place to save Long Yuan. The spatial chaos caused by Long Kong's self-explosion finally stopped, but everything in the surroundings seemed to have been destroyed. The void trembled, and a figure appeared. His aura was weak, and the armor on his body was shattered. PFFF. That person spat out a mouthful of blood, staining the void. He was the third captain. But now, except for him, his team members and Long Li's Black Dragon army team were all dead. He was the only one left in the team of dozens of people. The third captain's eyes were cold, as if they were filled with ice. His entire body shone with an indescribable light. He swallowed a pill, and his wounds healed at a visible rate. The self-healing ability of Hong Meng's fifth-layer chaotic primes was incredible. Very powerful. Finally, he raised his eyes and looked in the direction of Long Chen's escape. His eyes were cold. "Little ants, so what if I let you escape this time? Next time, I will make you die without a burial place." The dignified Hong Meng's fifth-layer chaotic primes were toyed with by a group of ants and were even seriously injured. For the third captain, it was an unbearable humiliation. At this moment, Long Chen clearly did not have such considerations. After leaving for an unknown period of time, he finally stopped. His body was filled with an indescribable light. He stopped and panted heavily. He didn't return to the big city. It was too dangerous there, and he would be easily discovered. He didn't even have the desire to stay in the courtyard. If he was discovered, he wouldn't be able to escape. He guessed right. The third captain's first target was the inn where he was hiding. He directly slaughtered everyone in the inn, but due to the prestige of the Black Dragon tribe, the people in the city didn't dare to say anything. They just let the third captain vent his anger. Long Chen shook his head and stopped thinking about these useless things. Instead, he looked at Long Yuan beside him. What secret did this little guy have? How could he make Long Kong go crazy before he died? He looked at Long Yuan, but found that the child's eyes were calm, as if everything he had just experienced was just a dream. "Are you okay?" Long Chen asked. This child was so calm that it was terrifying. Long Yuan didn't pay attention to him at all. Long Chen frowned. This person seemed to be born with dementia. It was no wonder that when he was at the inn just now, he felt that Long Yuan's condition was not quite right. It was no wonder that when he entrusted Long Kong to him just now, there was no fluctuation or reaction. He originally thought that he was deliberately pretending, but now it seemed that this was not the case. It was the same. Now that he thought about it carefully, this child couldn't have been born like this, right? Long Chen couldn't help but feel a little melancholy. He summoned Long Mu, aren't you going to explain to me what's wrong with this child? He didn't believe that Long Mu would like such a stupid child. Now, he could only let him answer his question. Long Mu's phantom appeared, but he wasn't in a hurry to answer Long Chen's question. He just smiled and said with a hint of evil, "Long Chen, you did well. You were actually able to escape from the hands of a 5th-stage chaotic prime from Hongmeng. Not bad, not bad." Long Chen didn't pay attention. In fact, if he used his trump card, he might not necessarily be unable to fight. However, since Long Kong chose to do this when he was about to die, he didn't need to risk his life. "Can you answer my question now?" Long Mu just smiled. His roguish and lazy attitude was swept away and he became serious. The phantom appeared beside Long Yuan and said, "Of course it's not like that. This child is as I imagined before. He has that kind of constitution." "What kind of constitution?" Long Chen was interested. He didn't know what Long Mu was talking about. Could it be related to Long Yuan? Long Mu looked at the void and said faintly, "Atavism. After some powerful Hongmeng monster beasts cross with other Hongmeng monster beasts, the bloodline power of the next generation will gradually thin, causing the next generation to be weaker than the previous generation. However, there are exceptions to everything. Atavism. It is to make the bloodline of the next generation stronger. The speed has reached the same level as our ancestors, and the density of their bloodline has increased." Chapter 1474. He originally thought that Long Yuan only had a trace of the Dragon Clan's bloodline, but he did not expect that he was actually an atavist. The concentration of his bloodline was probably infinitely close to that of the pure-blooded Dragon Clan. "Even if he's an atavist, his current cultivation is too weak," Long Chen said. Long Yuan's condition was really too bad, and his mind was a little dull. Long Mu just shook his head. His eyes were sharp, and his whole body was filled with an inexplicable brilliance. "You're wrong." "Oh?" Long Chen was immediately interested. He was now very curious about what Long Mu wanted to say. Long Chen paused and looked at Long Chen. He regained his arrogance and said calmly, "His mind is not naturally absent. It's just that the suppression of the bloodline of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan is too strong. It's because of this that he's in a daze now. He actually knows everything, but his own will is suppressed by the bloodline. He can't show it at all, and that's why this happened. This is probably the only flaw of an atavist. Before their bloodline is completely recovered, they can only rely on their body's instincts to move. They can't even cultivate. Long Yuan's current situation is like this." "I see." Long Chen nodded. The bloodline of the primordial dragon tribe was his opportunity. It was probably also the main culprit that caused him to become like this. Misfortune was a blessing in disguise. Perhaps even Long Yuan himself did not know. I'll tell you about the atavist bloodline later. For now, you should take good care of this child. There's something wrong with him." Long Mu suddenly said, and his eyes were fixed on Long Yuan. "What's going on?" Long Chen suddenly became nervous, and his eyes were also fixed on Long Yuan. Could it be that there was something wrong with this child? Long Mu just raised his hand, and streaks of red intertwined and wrapped around his body. Long Mu said calmly, "What do you think this is?" The intertwining blood-red network emitted an inexplicable aura. Long Chen frowned. Some kind of bloodline sealing array? The so-called bloodline seal was a seal that the elders in some large clans would plant in the child's body when the child was born. It would not affect the child's movement and growth, but it could be sensed through a secret technique. In response to his presence, the bloodline lock could help them find their missing descendants. Similarly, they could also be used to track down traitors in the family. This was a method used by large families to control their members, and Long Yuan was obviously under this kind of bloodline shackle. No wonder Long Kong and the others were discovered even though they tried to hide. Bloodlines were just too hard to hide. What should we do now? They won't catch up to us soon, right? Long Chen was a little worried. He increasingly felt that Long Yuan was a hot potato. It was too painful to hold her in his hands. Long Mu's face was filled with disdain as he said, "Haha. It's just the simplest bloodline lock, it's too easy to shield him. A message appeared in Long Chen's mind. Long Mu stood with his hands behind his back and said, "As long as I'm here, this kind of low-level method will never work." There was an indescribable pride in his words, but Long Chen quickly received this message. He smiled and his figure changed, constantly moving with Long Yuan. After a long time, Long Chen found a secluded place to hide himself and Long Yuan. Long Mu's eyes flickered. Streaks of starlight appeared from the surrounding stars, shining brightly. Finally, all the starlight gathered together and turned into a star, completely sealing off the surroundings. A mysterious aura appeared, as if it could isolate all prying eyes. With this great star array, the Black Dragon tribe's dregs won't be able to enter even if they're beaten to death. Long Mu proudly stood with his hands behind his back, indescribably arrogant. Long Chen was already used to this. A shadow of starlight appeared in his eyes. Long Chen could also control this great star array. He did not know if the Black Dragon tribe had any means to detect Long Yuan's location. Therefore, he used the great star array to seal off all the aura in the surroundings. As for the arrangement of the great star array, it was taught by Long Mu. It could isolate all living beings below the peak of the chaotic prime realm and Hong Meng from prying eyes. It was very practical for Long Chen. Light surged in the great star array. Long Chen found a spot and waved his hand. Starlight surged, and a cave dwelling appeared out of thin air. In this great star array, everything was controlled by Long Chen alone. Long Yuan's bloodline lock was not very advanced. Such a great star array was more than enough to break the array for him. His eyes moved, and he brought Long Yuan into the cave dwelling. Everyone could take a breather in this place. Long Chen was also very cautious at this moment. He had to prevent another battle in a short period of time. After all, Long Yuan did not have the ability to protect himself at all. If they were to fight, he would not be able to protect him at all if he did not have absolute strength. At the same time, in the distant Black Dragon tribe, a priest with a head full of white hair suddenly opened his eyes. He stretched out his hand and moved, and a wave of aura brought a memorial tablet before him up. The words Long Yuan were written on it. This is really strange. Why can't I sense this unfilial son's aura all of a sudden? Could it be that he has entered a place that is isolated from the world? That's why I lost contact with him. The priest said. An inexplicable aura surged all over his body and landed on Long Yuan's memorial tablet. He tried to sense it again, but there was nothing he could do. The light shattered, and the priest's hair turned gray again. It seemed that this secret technique consumed his vitality. At this moment, a man suddenly barged into the room where the priest was. He had a stocky build, and his aura fluctuated. However, there was a hint of hostility in his eyes. When he faced the priest, he still maintained a respectful attitude. "High Priest, do you have any clues?" the man asked, but there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. The priest looked over and said, "You have just become the new chief. It's time to buy people's hearts. At this time, it's not good for you to be ruthless." The man in front of him was the new chief of the Black Dragon tribe. However, the high priest did not care. The priest controlled the entire Black Dragon tribe to preach, guide cultivation, and build the foundation. He could even heal people. If it were not for the high priest's secret support, he would not have been able to control the entire tribe so easily. Chapter 1475. That person lowered his head and said in a low voice, "If you don't remove the roots, they'll grow again. I have to let them die before I can be at ease." Just now, Third Elder sent a message saying that he killed Long Kong, but he still let that little bastard and a stranger escape. "High Priest, please show me the way." The Third Elder had already reported everything to him. Of course, he wouldn't say that Long Kong's self-destruction had killed all his subordinates. He lied that Long Chen had used some method to kill his subordinates. The new chief didn't care about these details. He only cared about Long Yuan's life and death. He knew that the only person who could control the bloodline lock in the Black Dragon tribe was the High Priest, but every time he used the secret technique to find the location, he had to pay a big price. So unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't come to the high priest. Long Yuan is now in an isolated place. I can't do anything about it. The high priest shook his head and handed Long Yuan's tablet to the new chief. The bloodline lock consumes a lot of energy. I've already tried it, but there's no reaction. Also, don't forget what you promised me. The high priest suddenly said. Also, he's just a fool. He's trash that can't even cultivate a trace of Hongmeng's power. So what if he escapes? Compared to my life, he's not worth mentioning. The high priest looked at the new chief and said coldly. Obviously, he was no longer willing to sacrifice his precious life for Long Yuan. At this time, the new chief suddenly laughed and said, "Don't forget, I'm the true chief of the Black Dragon tribe. I'll let you investigate. Just investigate. If Long Yuan doesn't die, I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. As for what I promised you, I have my own decisions, but don't forget that I'm the true chief of the Black Dragon tribe." The new chief suddenly raised his head. His face was a bit pale, as if there was something in the depths of his eyes that he couldn't say. Otherwise, unless it was absolutely necessary, he definitely wouldn't have fallen out with the high priest. He needed the high priest's power to help him suppress the tribe. However, Long Yuan was a thorn in his heart. If he didn't get rid of him, his position as the chief of the tribe would be unstable. He released his aura to suppress the high priest, and Hongmeng's 7th stage primordial chaos realm cultivation suddenly erupted. The high priestess was not afraid in the face of this tide-like pressure. Her figure was like a small boat in the middle of a storm. Although she was swaying, she did not move. The high priest sneered and said in a deep voice, "Ha, if it wasn't for me, do you really think that you could be the leader of the upper tribe?" Suddenly, a terrifying power erupted from his aged body and crushed towards the new leader. The new leader actually knelt on the ground. His face was pale. He had never thought that the high priest would have such terrifying power. Even when facing his elder brother, the previous leader, he had never felt such pressure. It's because your brother is disobedient that you have the chance to become the leader. But if you don't listen to me, I can also choose another person to replace you. All I need is an obedient dog, the high priest said. His words were cold and vicious, like a giant hand grabbing the new leader. His heart. Was this his true status? The new leader's face changed color. The high priest raised a hand and slapped the new leader's face, almost smashing him into the ground. His face was covered in blood. "This is to make up for your previous offense." He sneered and stood with his hands behind his back. "I can help you, but you must know your place. I hope you can get what I want as soon as possible. Otherwise, you know the consequences." The high priest finally revealed his fangs. The new leader lowered his head in fear. His body trembled, and he no longer dared to threaten the high priest. He could only lower his head. "Then, are we just going to leave Long Yuan alone?" The high priest's power enveloped Long Yuan's memorial tablet and directly shattered it. He said indifferently, "We've wasted too much time on this fool. Bring everyone back. He's just a fool. What's the point of letting him live?" Obviously, he did not know Long Yuan's true physique. Inside the star array, Long Yuan stood beside Long Chen. His face was still filled with confusion, and his expression was blank. Long Chen looked at Long Yuan and said, "We have to find a way out. Staying here is not a solution." Long Yuan was like a firefly in the dark. Once he stepped out of the star array's range, he would be discovered in the shortest time. As a result, he could only hole up in the array formation, unable to move. Long Mu looked indifferent. He said, "We have to break the bloodline lock in his body." "How?" Long Chen asked. The bloodline lock is a layer of shackles added to the bloodline. The Hongmeng Dragon Clan's bloodline hates being bound. As long as his Dragon Clan's bloodline is completely awakened, the bloodline lock will be broken even though it is in the bloodline. Long Mu said. He said indifferently. "How long will it take for him to completely awaken his bloodline?" 300 years. He will be able to activate his bloodline on his own and get rid of the bloodline lock. You want me to stay in this broken place for 300 years? Longchen said helplessly. Although it was said that there was no time in cultivation, it was still uncomfortable to waste 300 years here. Longmu shook his head and looked at Longchen. If you really want to stay here for 300 years, I won't stop you. Longchen immediately reacted. He looked at Longmu and said, You mean, there is a way to awaken his bloodline in advance? Longmu looked at him and said, You are not too stupid. That's what I'm talking about. It will take a lot of time to awaken the bloodline of an atavist on his own. However, it will be much easier with the help of external objects. As long as there are enough external objects, it will only take 3 years for his bloodline to completely awaken. The difference between 300 years and 3 years was 100 times. Longchen naturally would not give up. He looked at Longchen and said, Do you like to look at the stars? Longmu ignored his mockery and said, Don't talk nonsense. What external objects do you need? Just say it. Longmu sneered and said, It won't be too troublesome. You just need to sacrifice a little. Chapter 1476. Longmu said, Let's see if you're willing to spend some effort on him. Origin blood essence was the condensation of a cultivator's bloodline. Every drop was incomparably important, especially for a cultivator like Longchen. Essence blood was the most important and was the foundation of his cultivation. Don't look down on this small drop of essence blood. Longchen needed 100 years of cultivation to condense it. 100 years of cultivation just like that made the others ponder for a moment before nodding their heads. He and Long Yuan met by chance and had nothing to fear. Even if he was an atavist of the dragon bloodline, the biggest karma between them was the existence of Long Kong. What do you think now? Long Mu finally spoke. His body surged with an inexplicable aura. He quietly looked at Long Chen and waited for his answer. Long Chen hesitated for a moment, but his hesitation soon turned into determination. His entire body surged with an inexplicable brilliance. The dragon halberd fell into the void and landed between Long Chen's eyebrows. A drop of dark red essence blood appeared. Although it was red, one could feel the restrained golden light within. One could faintly see the terrifying power contained within. There seemed to be a divine dragon soaring in the sky. Long Chen's face paled when this drop of essence blood appeared. It landed in his palm and shone brightly. He looked at Long Mu and said, What should we do next? Long Chen had already made his decision. He was prepared to offer up this drop of essence blood. Long Chen had promised Long Kong to take good care of Long Yuan. He couldn't do something as treacherous as this. It was just a drop of essence blood. Long Chen wouldn't be reluctant to part with it. However, at this moment, Long Mu suddenly smiled with an inexplicable meaning. What happens next is very simple. You just have to directly inject your essence blood into his body. After that, it will depend on the kid's own fortune, Long Mu said indifferently, but there was an indescribable feeling in his voice. Long Mu had a special feeling for the Hongmeng dragon race. Since Long Chen was willing to sacrifice his cultivation to help Long Yuan, he naturally received his approval. Long Chen only nodded when he heard that. He didn't think too much about it. A faint shadow of a primordial spirit appeared behind him. 6 golden dragons circled around, but the 6th dragon's figure was somewhat illusory. Long Chen raised his hand. His essence blood turned into a ray of light and landed between Long Yuan's eyebrows. In an instant, it merged into his forehead. A soft golden light began to spread from his brow to his entire body, sacred and inviolable. Long Yuan's brow shone brightly, and he suddenly opened his eyes and roared in pain, Ark! What's going on? Long Chen was a little surprised. Long Yuan's behavior was really unpredictable. If Long Yuan's body is like a pot of medicine that needs to be boiled continuously for it to be effective, then a drop of your essence blood is a raging fire that directly causes this pot of medicine to boil. The process of 300 years was suppressed to 10 years. How can he not pay a price? Long Mu said. He seemed to have predicted this situation. This pain was continuous. For 3 whole years, it was torture all the time. However, Long Mu didn't care at all. If he can't even withstand this kind of pain, it will only be a waste of our Hong Meng dragon race's bloodline. If he dies, then so be it, Long Mu said. Long Chen looked at this scene, then looked at Long Yuan and shook his head. This was Long Yuan's own battle. He couldn't help at all. He just shook his head and found a place to begin his cultivation. He had just lost 100 years of cultivation. Now, he needed to recuperate. Long Yuan was also a calm person. Even in this kind of situation, other than the ferocious and terrifying appearance at the beginning, he actually gritted his teeth and held on without saying a word. As time passed, Long Yuan's aura became more and more stable. Streaks of dark and gloomy aura appeared, filled with endless devil qi. Long Yuan himself also sat quietly in the dark devil qi. His expression was calm. After 3 years of training, he also matured a lot. The bloodline of the dark devil dragon? Not bad, not bad. Long Chen, you have a good helper. Long Mu's shadow appeared behind Long Chen without anyone noticing. He spoke faintly with a trace of surprise in his eyes. In his prediction, the bloodline of Long Yuan in the outskirts of this place was at most some low-level bloodlines like the Black Dragon and the Red Dragon. However, things exceeded his expectations. It was actually the bloodline of the Dark Devil Dragon. There were many races in the Hong Meng Dragon clan. Most of them were low-level bloodlines. The potential of their bloodline was limited. Usually, after reaching the consolidation realm of Hong Meng, they would lose the potential to continue. Above the low-level dragon clan was the mid-level dragon clan. Dragons like the Dark Devil Dragon were already in the category of the high-level dragon clan. Their potential was almost immeasurable. As long as they grew up, they could dominate a region. Back then, the Dark Devil Dragon bloodline was too strong. They killed countless people and provoked the wrath of the heavens. In the end, Father personally annihilated them. I didn't expect that there was still an inheritance left. TSK, TSK, TSK. The Black Dragon Clan. Interesting. Long Mu said thoughtfully. However, his voice could only be heard by him. Roar! Long Yuan suddenly roared, and the demonic aura around him surged violently. Finally, it turned into a ferocious and mighty black dragon. It was like an unparalleled demon lord that walked out of the dark demonic abyss. With a roar, the entire star formation couldn't withstand his roar and collapsed inch by inch. Long Mu, didn't you say that this great star formation can stop everyone in Hong Meng who is in the chaotic prime realm? Seeing the great star formation shatter inch by inch in the starlight dim, Long Chen couldn't help but ridicule. At the same time, he activated his power to protect himself. This is the inherited power of the Dark Devil Dragon bloodline. However, Long Yuan himself is still very weak. How can this great star formation resist the will of the Dark Devil Dragon's inheritance? Long Mu said. Long Yuan was like a god in the Devil Qi. With a raise of his hand, the endless Devil Qi gradually disappeared and turned into a black dragon shadow behind him. Then, it disappeared on his spine and turned into a black dragon tattoo that was as black as ink on his back. This dragon tattoo was both real and illusory. It was like a real dragon was entrenched. Its aura was vigorous in vicissitudes of life. Long Chen looked at Long Yuan and couldn't help but be shocked. He originally didn't have the slightest combat power. Even his mind was a little muddled. However, now that he had just awakened, the terrifying aura around him was so terrifying. It seemed that the power of the Dragon Clan was really incredible. Chapter 1477. After doing all this, Long Yuan seemed to have exhausted all of his strength and fainted. Long Chen shook his head and walked over to help Long Yuan put on his clothes. The explosion just now had destroyed all of his clothes, and Long Yuan was now naked. Long Mu secretly looked at a certain part of Long Yuan's body and nodded with satisfaction. He said, "What a great dragon! As expected of our Hong Meng dragon clan. Mighty and majestic?" Ha! Long Chen directly chose to ignore Long Mu. He was back to being naughty. However, at this moment, Long Yuan suddenly opened his eyes. They were filled with endless demonic aura, and the shadow of the dark demon dragon appeared behind him. The demonic aura was rampant, as if it wanted to devour everything. Roar! Long Yuan spat out a dragon roar. The demonic aura shook, and directly attacked Long Chen. His hands turned into sharp claws, and he wanted to penetrate Long Chen's chest. The claws were wrapped in black demonic aura, and it was eerie and horrifying. Not good. Long Chen sensed the danger and immediately changed his position. However, it was a pity that Long Chen was too close to Long Yuan. Even if he reacted in time, his chest was still torn open by the claws. Black mist swirled around his chest. Long Chen's figure changed, and then he saw a burst of light. Long Chen's eyes gradually became sharp. Why did Long Yuan suddenly become like this? He touched his wound. His powerful physique was recovering. His flesh and blood wriggled and quickly returned to normal. Only a piece of torn clothes showed that he was once injured. Aya, the dark demon dragon is indeed incomparably ferocious. Even in the bloodline inheritance, there is still this ruthlessness. Long Yuan has just released his bloodline, and he can't resist this will. That's why he became like this. Long Mu explained to Long Chen. However, when he spoke, there was always a faint smile. It was as if he had already expected Long Chen's current situation. Long Chen's eyes flickered. He no longer cared about Long Mu's matter, and his eyes shone brightly. Long Yuan was looking at him. Long Chen's eyes were incomparably sharp. He looked at Long Yuan, and the dragon halberd had landed in his hand. His aura turned into a divine splendor, and Long Yuan's aura was majestic. His eyes were filled with terrifying black light. He roared, and the light around him lingered, and the demonic aura filled the air, faintly forming the shadow of a dark demonic dragon. Roar! Long Yuan's will had been completely controlled. The black aura circled around, and with a dragon roar, it rushed towards Long Chen. Long Chen's eyes were sharp, and his body flickered with endless divine brilliance. He raised his hand, and endless light gathered in the palm of his hand, turning into a bolt of lightning. Then, the light turned into millions of divine brilliance, and completely enveloped Long Chen's body. The divine brilliance of heaven and earth appeared, and a terrifying aura fluctuated. Long Chen held the dragon halberd in his hand, and the sharp light surged, rushing towards the demonic aura of the dark demon dragon. Roar! The attacks of the two collided, and a terrifying light shadow appeared. The already broken star formation was completely torn apart by the attacks of the two. Endless light surged, and Long Chen's eyes flickered with divine brilliance. The brilliance of the stars fell, and Long Chen looked over. The dragon halberd turned into millions of divine brilliance, and countless dragon shadows appeared. With a roar, the whole world seemed to tremble. Long Yuan roared. He was only a remnant of his will, and the strength that he could retain was not particularly strong. The two continued to exchange blows. Long Yuan gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Golden Sword God Slaughtering Formation. Then, a light shadow appeared, and 99 golden lotuses bloomed in the void. Their brilliance was like endless dragons, and they kept gathering in the void, including Long Yuan. Long Chen's expression changed, and he smiled faintly. With a stretch of his hand, 99 golden lotuses appeared, and the world trembled. Long Chen raised his arm, and countless rays of light fell. All the golden lotuses withered at this moment, and the light dimmed. Long Chen smiled faintly, and his eyes became extremely sharp. Long Chen raised his hand, and countless withered golden lotus petals lingered around him. Each petal was like a golden sword, exuding a sharp aura, as if they were going to tear Long Yuan apart. With each lotus petal that appeared, the black demonic aura around Long Yuan dimmed a little. Under such a terrifying attack, he could not continue to maintain his attacking posture. Roar! Long Yuan roared unwillingly, and the thick black demonic aura seemed to have turned into a substance. Finally, it condensed into a black palm that was thousands of feet long. It was aggressive, and Long Chen's figure was like an ant in front of it. However, Long Chen was not nervous at all. He smiled faintly, and his eyes were cold. His whole body was filled with golden brilliance, and his dragon halberd shook the void. It was like a little light in the darkness, and it tore apart the demonic aura giant hand. However, before Long Chen could rejoice, the giant hand that was torn apart actually condensed again. And this time, its aura was even more majestic and turbulent. An ordinary person would not be able to tremble under this aura. Bursts of light surged, and Long Chen roared. He finally realized the danger. Long Yuan's combat power had seriously exceeded his imagination. It was as if he was his enemy. I forgot to tell you that my father destroyed the dark demonic dragon. This should be in their inherited memory, and they are especially sensitive to my father's aura. You're on your own now. Long Mu suddenly said, but he seemed to be gloating. Long Chen's whole body trembled, and he gritted his teeth to hold on. However, Long Mu was still making sarcastic remarks. How do you deal with this guy? Tell me quickly. I can't hold on anymore. Long Mu also knew that Long Chen was about to reach his limit. He said seriously, the dark demonic dragon used your heavenly dragon vein as a primer to awaken. It is very sensitive to your bloodline aura. Therefore, as long as you can release your bloodline aura, the dark demonic dragon's consciousness will not be complete, and it will fall into a deep sleep again. Then, all of this will not be a problem. Why didn't you say so earlier? Long Chen smiled bitterly. If it was really possible, why would he fight with Long Yuan for so long? However, Long Mu innocently waved his hand and said, you can't blame me for this. You didn't ask earlier. I thought you wanted to play with her. Long Chen did not have time to bicker with Long Mu. Under the pressure of Long Yuan, Long Chen was already bitterly holding on. Ha! Long Chen roared. The aura on his body fluctuated, and finally turned into a golden lotus. Long Chen's eyes suddenly became sharp. He looked at Long Yuan, who was not far away. His body suddenly lit up, and the power of his bloodline was released, faintly forming a shadow behind him. Chapter 1478. Long Yuan's face was gradually replaced by a black demonic aura. It looked very strange, but soon, the demonic aura gradually dissipated. In the end, he actually completely returned to his original appearance. The moment Long Yuan recovered, he fainted again. Long Chen looked at him, but for some reason, he didn't dare to move forward again. His whole body was filled with an inexplicable brilliance, as if he was defending against something. Don't worry, that was just a little bit of the dark demon dragon's will in his blood. Now that the last trace is gone, Long Yuan won't be a threat to you at all. Long Mu's voice sounded again, and he said to Long Chen. However, Long Chen shook his head. His eyes flashed, and he finally sighed, and said, Long Mu, do you think I still dare to believe you now? Recently, Long Chen suffered a lot under Long Mu's hands, so he now had some resistance to Long Mu's words. Who knew if this was another one of his pranks? Who knew that Long Mu's shadow would appear? He smiled faintly, shook his head, and said, You trust me so much when you shouldn't, but you choose not to trust me when you should. Long Chen, I found that you are very interesting. Long Chen was not moved at all. Then why don't you see who made me like this? Long Mu didn't say anything and changed the topic. He looked at Long Yuan and said, Long Chen, you don't have to worry this time. Long Yuan won't go berserk again. After venting the dark demon dragon's anger, he has regained his will. He should be able to wake up soon. Long Chen also nodded. Long Mu was rarely serious, but every time he was serious, it was when the situation was urgent. Although the dark demon dragon's bloodline is far inferior to yours, his potential is huge. If you train him well, it's not impossible for him to surpass the Hongmeng Yuan Jie in the future. Now that Long Yuan is unconscious, you can control him. Long Mu said faintly, as if he was used to this. The Hongmeng Dragon Clan also belonged to the Hongmeng Demon Beast Clan. However, they were strong enough to form their own clan. There were many barbaric rules in the Hongmeng Dragon Clan. Whoever awakened the Dragon Clan could control their own fate. Therefore, every high-level Dragon Clan controlled hundreds and thousands of Hongmeng dragons. However, this wasn't rare in the Hongmeng Dragon Clan. In Long Mu's view, Long Chen could take advantage of the fact that Long Yuan was unconscious to plant a slave seal in him. From then on, he would have complete control over him. Unfortunately, Long Mu was wrong. Long Chen wasn't a Hongmeng Dragon Clan. He was just a human. The rules of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan were not very useful in the Dragon Clan. Therefore, Long Chen just smiled and shook his head gently. A gentleman has his limits. I can't take advantage of people when they are in danger. I won't touch this kid. Long Chen took a step forward. He suspended Long Yuan's body in the air. His eyes gradually became sharp. I promised Long Kong, and I will definitely do it. Plant a slave seal in Long Yuan? Do you want me to be a treacherous person? Long Chen's voice wasn't very loud, but Long Mu could feel the power in his words. He shook his head. This is the tradition of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan. Since you have accepted the guidance of your blood essence, I should serve you. What's wrong with this? This is the rule. This is the rule of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan, but it is not the rule of me, Long Chen. Now, I am the king of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan. I now announce that this rule is abolished. Long Mu, do you have any objections? Long Chen's eyes were a little cold, and his eyes flickered. Long Mu didn't say anything. According to the words passed down by Hongmeng, Long Chen was the supreme king of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan from now on. His words were the supreme standard of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan. Even Long Mu had to admit defeat after Long Chen used this big move. Long Mu's eyes gradually became blurred, and a burst of brilliance surged. His breath fluctuated, as if he wanted to resist something, but there was no other way. He could only bow his head. Long Mu obeys. No matter how proud he was, he had to bow his head after Long Chen really broke out his strength. He wouldn't forget that he was Long Chen's guardian. Long Chen's eyes flickered, and finally, his eyes fell on Long Yuan. After a period of time, Long Yuan finally woke up slowly. Long Chen looked over, but he couldn't help but be alert. The shadow that Long Yuan left in his heart last time was too big. However, what he imagined didn't come. Long Yuan opened his eyes, and his eyes were clear and bright. Finally, he looked at Long Chen, and seemed to be touched. He said, I am Long Yuan. Thank you for your help. Although his will was suppressed, he was aware of everything that happened in the outside world. He saw what Long Chen did. Now that he saw the real person, he was naturally grateful. Although he was only 15 years old, he was also weather-beaten. There was a bit of calmness in his words. Long Yuan bowed to Long Chen and said, Long Yuan's talent is dull, and his will is hazy. When he saw his loved ones being killed, he was helpless. Thank you for your help to restore my will and regain control of my body. Long Chen didn't seem to care and just smiled. He said, it's nothing. This is what I promised Long Kong. If you want to fall, go find Long Kong. When he mentioned Long Kong, Long Yuan's eyes couldn't help but show a touch of sadness. Although his will was suppressed, he didn't lose his perception of the outside world. He saw Long Kong's kindness to him. Long Yuan had been homeless all this time, and he had already regarded him as a family member. Especially at the last moment, Long Kong had sacrificed himself to save him. He had actually given up on his own life and chosen to self-detonate to create an opportunity for Long Chen and the others to escape. Uncle Long Kong, I will remember him. Long Yuan hesitated for a while, and then said with a bit of sadness. Long Chen also sighed. No one knew what he was thinking. Finally, Long Yuan raised his head and looked at Long Chen. He said, Long Yuan has no way to repay the kindness of saving my life. I am only willing to give my life to you. Chapter 1479. Long Yuan raised his head, looked at Long Chen, and said, Long Yuan has no way to repay you for saving my life and guiding me. I can only give you my life. He was ready to recognize Long Chen as his master. Long Chen could not help but feel a little stunned. He watched as Long Yuan opened up his consciousness. A rune appeared in his mind, flashing with an inexplicable luster. At the same time, there was a trace of his soul. As long as Long Chen branded his thoughts in Long Yuan's mind, he would be able to control his thoughts at any time in the future. That trace of soul was also a fragment of his soul that was separated from his main body. As long as Long Chen wanted to kill him, Long Yuan would definitely die after crushing that fragment of his soul. It was equivalent to handing over all his trump cards to Long Chen. Long Yuan did not regret it at all. Even in his hazy state, he knew that Long Chen's combat strength was heaven-defying. Although he was only in the Hongmeng realm, he was able to fight against a Hongmeng third-stage chaotic prime. It was simply beyond his imagination. With such a foundation and talent, he had already regarded Long Chen as a top genius in the martial ancestor continent with a profound foundation. He knew that only by following Long Chen would he have a chance to avenge his parents and Long Kong in the future. However, he had seriously underestimated his own potential. With his potential, as long as he cultivated wholeheartedly, the Black Dragon tribe would not be his opponent even if they joined forces. Long Yuan raised his head and looked at Long Chen with sparkling eyes, waiting for Long Chen's reply. Although he was only 15 years old, his wisdom had been awakened due to the inheritance. His maturity had already surpassed most cultivators. He would remember everything that Long Chen had done for him. Otherwise, no matter how profound Long Chen's background was, Long Yuan would not have given up his dignity to follow Long Chen. I hope you will allow me to follow you. Long Yuan spoke again and kowtowed to Long Chen. He didn't expect Long Yuan to do this. Long Mu's figure appeared again. Because only Long Chen could see him, Long Mu did not know of Long Mu's existence. Long Mu smiled faintly, as if he was joking, and said, Now that it has come to your door, don't you want it? I also know that I am incompetent, but Long Yuan has chosen to follow you. Long Yuan knelt for a long time without getting up. Even when Long Chen pulled him, he was unwilling to get up. It seemed like he had already decided on Long Chen. Long Chen looked at him and sighed. Why are you doing this? He raised his hand, and Long Yuan's spiritual rune and a wisp of soul fell into his hand. Then, a burst of golden light appeared. Long Chen shook his head. All these things turned into a ray of light and entered Long Yuan's mind. Your Excellency, this is... Long Yuan was somewhat stunned, and couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed. As expected, he was still rejected. However, at this time, Long Chen suddenly said, Since you are willing to follow me, then, Long Yuan, let me ask you, are you willing to take me as your master? Long Chen's expression became solemn. In the world of cultivators, the relationship between master and disciple was no less than that between father and son, let alone ordinary followers. This could be seen from the relationship between Long Chen and Jian San. He was willing to take Long Yuan as his disciple because he saw his nature and potential. Are you willing to take me as your master? Long Chen repeated this question again, his eyes roaming about Long Yuan's body. Long Yuan was overjoyed. He continuously kowtowed on the ground and said, This disciple is willing. Long Chen waved his sleeves and sat upright. He raised his hand and a ray of light surged. In the end, it turned into a chair. Long Chen sat up straight and said, Taking a master is a major event. We should hold a banquet to welcome you and announce it to everyone. However, the conditions here are simple and crude. We won't go through those complicated formalities. There are only 3 cups of tea. If you can drink them, then you are my disciple. Long Yuan also stood up and nodded, saying, This disciple is willing. Good. Let's see this first cup of tea. Long Yuan, are you willing to take me as your master and receive my inheritance? Long Chen asked. His voice was loud and resonated for thousands of miles. A cup of tea with dense mist suddenly appeared in front of Long Yuan. Long Yuan didn't hesitate at all. He drank it all in one gulp and said, "This disciple is willing." Long Yuan, if you become my disciple, you cannot betray me. Otherwise, you will be punished by being struck by lightning. Are you willing? Longchen asked again. The relationship between master and disciple was very deep. Betrayal was the greatest hatred. Long Yuan naturally understood. He picked up the second cup of tea and drank it all in one gulp, saying, "This disciple is willing." The third cup of tea. If you follow me, you will face the impact of the greatest power in this world. Your fate will be full of misfortune and your future will be uncertain. You may even have to pay with your life. Long Yuan, I will ask you one more time. Are you willing? Longchen spoke again. This time, the wind and clouds changed color. Waves of wind and clouds lingered around Longchen's body. Faint flashes of lightning appeared. He was like the Lord of the Nine Heavens, standing on top of the heavenly palace with a deafening voice. Long Yuan looked at the teacup in front of him and was actually a bit hesitant. He was very smart and was able to grasp the essence of Longchen's words. Longchen seemed to have a great secret on his body. Although he didn't know what it was definitely very dangerous. However, in the end, he still picked up the last cup of tea. This small cup of tea seemed to have the weight of 1,000 caddies. Long Yuan raised his hand. His eyes appeared. One hand couldn't bear the weight of this cup of tea. This last cup of tea represents the predicament you will face. Are you willing to accept it? Long Chen's voice was unprecedentedly heavy. His eyes gradually turned cold. He bore the burden of the revival of the entire Hongmeng dragon clan. The risks he faced were unknown. He could even vaguely guess from Long Meng and Long Mu's behavior. The people he would face in the future were probably those who stood at the peak of the entire Hongmeng extreme realm. The slightest carelessness could lead to an irrecoverable end. If Long Yuan didn't have the confidence to face the risks with him, he wouldn't have accepted this disciple. I can't repay you for saving my life. Long Yuan is willing to be at Master's beck and call and share his future. Long Mu suddenly raised his head. A touch of determination appeared in his eyes, as if he had already made a decision. His eyes were filled with determination. He raised his hand and picked up the third cup of tea. With a dignified expression, he said, "This is the third cup of tea." Long Yuan is willing. The huge pressure was swept away. Only the teacup was left floating in the air. Long Yuan drank the tea in the cup in one gulp. Then, he knelt down in front of Long Chen. He knelt 3 times and bowed 9 times. He said, "Disciple Long Yuan greets Master." Long Chen nodded slightly. Long Yuan's aptitude was very strong. If he accepted him as a disciple, he might be of great help. Chapter 1480. I don't know what kind of weird temperament you humans have. Long Mu's eyes flickered as he looked at this scene. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know where to start. After saying that, his figure turned illusory and disappeared into the dragon palace between Long Chen's eyebrows. Then, Long Chen smiled and a golden light emerged from his body. He lifted Long Yuan's body and said, "From now on, you are my second disciple. Your senior brother and I were separated. Otherwise, I would have let you two meet." Long Yuan stood up. Both master and disciple stood in the void just like that. Their auras were like 2 suns hanging in the sky. Around them, starlight emerged from the shattered grand celestial formation. Dim stars drifted in the void. Long Yuan's endless demonic aura and Long Chen's terrifying light intertwined with each other, making the two of them look even more majestic. Since you are my disciple, you can inherit my legacy. Since ancient times, I have never passed on the Tao. Today, I will pass on the Tao to you. Long Chen's robe fluttered in the wind. He looked like a supreme king. Long Yuan stretched out a hand. Long Chen didn't dare to raise his head and let Long Chen's hand fall on his head. It was unknown how much time had passed. Runes emerged from Long Chen's body. Rays of light shone brightly and the momentum was great. Long Yuan's eyes gradually became confused. All of this seemed extraordinary, but he didn't feel any useful information. Long Chen looked serious. He didn't say anything. He thought it was a normal process and continued to lower his head. In the Dragon Palace, Long Chen and Long Yuan stood opposite each other. Long Chen smiled faintly. His eyes bloomed with brilliance. He looked at Long Mu and asked, "Why can't I pass on the 8th-division Heavenly Dragon technique to Long Yuan?" After Long Yuan awakened the dark demonic dragon's bloodline, he had turned from an unarmed mortal to a Hongmeng cultivator. Therefore, Long Chen wanted to pass on the 8th-division Heavenly Dragon technique to Long Yuan. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't succeed. Without a doubt, this was Long Mu's doing. Ha! The descendant of a traitor's bloodline is qualified to touch the Dragon Clan's Supreme Foundation establishment technique? Dream on. Long Mu was a little angry. He waved his sleeve and turned his head. Obviously, he was unwilling to agree with Long Chen. The 8th-division Heavenly Dragon technique was one of the 9 Supreme Foundation establishment techniques in Hongmeng. Even in the Hongmeng Dragon Clan, it was a supreme existence. Even the core members of the Dragon Clan might not be able to inherit it, let alone a traitor of the dark demonic dragon. Long Chen just smiled. However, there was a touch of tenacity in his smile. His whole body surged with a faint brilliance. He said, "The Hongmeng Dragon Clan no longer exists. What's the use of following these rules?" Long Mu finally turned around. His eyes were sharp. He sneered and said mockingly, "Rules? You're talking about rules with me? Well, if you want your precious disciple to die without a burial place, then let her cultivate the 8th-division Heavenly Dragon technique. I won't stop you." Long Chen understood Long Mu's meaning. Long Mu was not an unreasonable person. In the Yan tribe, he taught boxing to the children there and helped them build their foundation. Right now, he must have his own reasons. Otherwise, he would not say such words. Long Chen's eyes became calm again. He said, "What's going on?" The Dragon Clan's whole body was filled with a cold aura. With a wave of his sleeve, the brilliance of heaven and earth flowed. Long Mu turned around. His eyes were cold. Long Yuan and Long Chen's performance in the outside world appeared in his mind. He said faintly, "The 8th-division Heavenly Dragon technique was born from the Golden Book of Chaos. It's the most holy and bright manifestation of it. You are the Heavenly Dragon bloodline, born from chaos. Naturally, you don't need to worry about these problems. But the dark demonic dragon is different from you. The dark demonic dragon was born in the darkness and was tainted with endless demonic chi. If you let him cultivate the 8th-division Heavenly Dragon technique by force, he will go mad. Breaking his foundation is a small matter, but in a serious situation, he will die." Long Mu's tone was very serious. It did not seem like he was joking at all. Long Chen's eyes gradually became calm. All things in the world reinforced and restrained each other. He only saw that the 8th-division Heavenly Dragon technique could help people build their foundation, but neglected the conflict between the techniques. Thinking of Long Yuan's fate after cultivating the 8th-division Heavenly Dragon technique, Long Chen could not help but feel a lingering fear. Long Mu's back was facing Long Chen. He said, "I've never been a vengeful person. In today's Hongmeng extreme realm, I'm afraid that other than you, this guy is the only one who has the bloodline of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan. Although the dark demonic dragon bloodline was exterminated, he is still part of the Dragon Clan. Naturally, I will not harm him." Unknowingly. Long Mu's tone was somewhat sorrowful. Long Chen's eyes became sharp. Naturally, he understood Long Mu's experience. Long Chen looked at his shadow in the center of the Dragon Palace and could not help but say, "Then what do you think I should do now? I can't let him not have any cultivation techniques. As you said, he is also part of the Dragon Clan. Long Mu just smiled and said, "It's your own business. Solve it yourself." Long Chen sighed. He did not know what to do. Was he really going to embarrass himself in front of his new disciple? Finally, after an unknown amount of time, Long Mu seemed to realize Long Chen's helplessness. He said, "I remember that after my father exterminated the dark demonic dragon, he did not destroy their inheritance. Instead, he hid it in the Taoist scriptures and put it aside for other dragon clans to learn from. Later, when the Hongmeng dragon clan was destroyed, my father created Long Mu with his great power and hid the entire Hongmeng dragon clan's inheritance. The inheritance of the dark demonic dragon must be among them. For the sake of his dragon clan bloodline, I can let his will descend on Long Mu. As for whether he can obtain the inheritance of the dark demonic dragon, it's not my fault." Long Chen nodded. This was obviously the safest way. However, at this moment, Long Mu suddenly raised his head and looked at Long Chen. He said, "But the Dragon Palace and Long Mu are the most important for the revival of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan. Therefore, in my opinion, after he obtains the inheritance of the dark demonic dragon, he must erase all his memories of this place." Long Mu's tone was very serious. Regarding the Dragon Palace and Long Mu, he only trusted Long Chen. He could not trust anyone else, even Long Yuan, who also had the bloodline of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan. Long Chen also knew that this was a serious matter. He nodded and said, "Okay." Chapter 1481. Long Chen also knew that this was a serious matter. He nodded and said, "Okay. Good. Bring his will in." Long Mu said. Suddenly, ripples appeared in the Dragon Palace. Layers of golden light flickered and finally fell between Long Chen's eyebrows. The aura that shrouded Long Mu began to gradually dissipate, revealing hundreds of millions of tombstones of the Hongmeng Dragon Clan. After a friendly exchange between Long Chen and Long Mu, he left the Dragon Palace. He left the Dragon Palace and his consciousness returned to his body. He looked at Long Yuan, who still had his eyes closed. It had been 6 to 8 hours since he received the inheritance. Long Yuan could no longer sit still. Long Chen suddenly stopped his cultivation. He raised his head and looked at Long Yuan casually. Long Yuan immediately straightened his attitude and said, "Master, is it over?" Long Chen shook his head and said, "No, it's just the beginning." Long Chen coughed twice to avoid affecting the image of his great and glorious master. He casually said, "Just now, I was only baptizing your soul. All of this is so that you can better accept the inheritance that belongs to you. My lineage has a place of inheritance that requires the purest soul. After entering the place of inheritance, you will be transmitted out after receiving the inheritance. After that, you will lose all of your memories." Long Yuan nodded and said, "Thank you, Master. I understand." Long Chen nodded seriously and said, "That's good." Long Chen looked at Long Yuan. His eyes gradually became sharp. Light surged all over his body. Resplendent runes fell in the void as he said, "Now is the time to release your consciousness. I will guide you to the land of inheritance." At the same time, he sent a message to Long Mu and said, "It's about time. We can start." Although Long Mu was somewhat reluctant, the runes in his hand danced. Waves of light surged and waves of radiance descended. A golden light burst out from the Dragon Palace and turned into a golden door. Long Chen raised his hand and guided Long Yuan's consciousness over. Only a faint divine light could be seen. He smiled and looked at Long Yuan, who was beside him. Similarly, light surged in his hand, and runes flickered one after another. The Dragon Palace had been sealed by Long Meng, and its control was divided into 2 parts. Long Chen and Long Mu each controlled a part of it. If anyone else tried to barge in, they would die without a doubt. They would only be killed by the terrifying methods left behind by Long Meng. Long Chen and Long Mu worked together to construct a golden door. Long Chen's gaze was extremely sharp. Long Mu's aura vibrated, and Long Yuan's will was guided in. Long Yuan felt the world spinning around him. When he reappeared, he was already in a terrifying tomb. The surroundings were filled with dragon bone tombstones, and the aura of death and solemnity assaulted him. He had never seen such a scene before. He couldn't help but feel nervous. He looked at his surroundings and was at a loss. He didn't know what to do. Is this the land of inheritance? Why do I feel such a deep sense of sorrow? Long Yuan muttered to himself. Looking at Long Mu, he couldn't help but feel a sense of sorrow. This was a feeling that came from the depths of his bloodline. Long Yuan, calm down. What you need to do now is to feel the voice in your bloodline and choose the most suitable inheritance for you. Long Chen's shadow appeared and landed in front of Long Yuan. Long Yuan nodded, and his eyes regained their solemnity. The dark demonic dragon's bloodline was agitated, and a faint demonic aura was emitted from his body. It blended into the void as if he was looking for something. His entire person seemed to have merged with Long Mu. Long Yuan, remember that you only have 1 month. After 1 month, regardless of whether you obtain the inheritance or not, you must come out. Long Chen said solemnly. 1 month was the deadline that Long Mu gave Long Chen. Long Mu's temptation was too great. Back then, it was Senior Long Meng who sealed Long Mu and locked it in between Long Chen's eyebrows. This prevented his aura from spreading. Long Chen's actions just now had clearly broken the seal left behind by Long Meng. This allowed Long Yuan's will to descend. However, even if Long Chen and Long Mu tried their best, they could only delay Long Mu's existence for a month. After a month, there would be many terrifying existences in Hong Meng's extreme realm. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to relax so easily in the future. Long Yuan also knew that this magical place wouldn't exist for too long. He smiled and said, I understand. Long Chen could feel his confidence, so he naturally wouldn't say anything. He just shook his head and said, I hope you won't disappoint me. Long Chen's projection disappeared from this place. His eyes became cold. He raised his hand, and the dark demonic dragon's aura trembled. Countless black demonic aura gushed out from his body, and finally turned into the shadow of a dark demonic dragon behind him. His expression suddenly became solemn. At this time, he had to remain calm. In the dragon palace outside, Long Mu and Long Chen looked at the shadow hovering in front of them with solemn expressions. Do you think this guy can obtain the dark demonic dragon's inheritance? The dark demonic dragon was a genuine high-level dragon. Long Yuan was only an atavist, not a real dark demonic dragon. Whether or not he could obtain the inheritance was really a problem. Long Chen's indifferent eyes fell on Long Yuan. His whole body was surging with golden brilliance, and his temperament was indifferent. The two of us shoulder the heavy responsibility of revitalizing the entire Hong Meng dragon clan. If Long Yuan wants to join us, he must have enough strength. The dark demonic dragon's inheritance is the simplest thing in comparison. Chapter 1482. Long Yuan was in the first level of Long Mu, and he had not approached any tombstone for half a month. His face was pale, and his eyes looked as if his mind would be crushed by the mighty pressure at any time. Long Mu looked at him and nodded slightly. Originally, only Long Chen could enter this place. The fact that he could stay here for so long without losing control proved that Long Mu had acknowledged the demonic dragon's aura in his body. I'll help you again. If I still can't find you, I might have to die here. Long Mu muttered to himself, and his face became colder. Rumble. Long Mu's mind moved, and suddenly, thousands of rays of light shone on the endless tombstones. The tombstones began to tremble. The violent dragon roar seemed to have materialized and rushed into the sky, shaking the surroundings as if it was going to tear the world apart. Dragon shadows and remnant souls covered the sky and earth, and instantly filled the entire space. Long Yuan's face changed drastically, and his legs were not listening to him. He suddenly knelt on the ground with one knee, and he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Endless dark demonic aura spread out from his body, but it still could not resist the dragon roar. The dragon roar was sad and ancient, as if it had traveled through time. If this goes on, I'm afraid I'll be killed here in less than a month if I can't find the demonic dragon's inheritance. Long Yuan muttered to himself, and clenched his teeth. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt an endless murderous intent shrouding his body, and it made him feel cold all over. He looked up and saw a remnant soul with only a tungsten dragon's head staring at him from afar, and its eyes were full of murderous intent. Plop! Their eyes met. The demonic aura around Long Yuan's body instantly collapsed. Without the protection of the demonic aura, his flesh and blood began to crack. This dragon soul wants to kill me. Long Yuan shouted himself hoarse, and frantically mobilized his origin energy. As far as his eyes could see, the dragon's remnant soul broke through the air, and its bloody mouth seemed to want to swallow him. Long Yuan raised his head. When he saw that the dragon's head was already within 100 meters of him, he felt a tremor from his soul. He saw grief and humiliation in the dragon's eyes. You are the soul of the demon dragon. I can feel the blood connection between the souls of the deceased. Why do you want to take my life? Long Yuan roared. Rumble. The dragon head remained unmoved and continued to devour him. He was about to die. Long Yuan leaped up and punched out. Bang! He was blasted 1,000 meters away, and his flesh was on the verge of shattering. The anger in his heart soared to the heavens. He didn't know why the demon dragon's remnant soul wanted to kill him even though he possessed the demon dragon's inheritance. At this moment, he actually stood up. If you want to kill me, then come. The moment he stood up, the demon dragon's skull actually stopped in place and let out a sky-shaking dragon roar. Long Yuan froze on the spot. He finally understood. The demon dragon's soul would not allow him to kneel. A dragon's dignity was like its soul. Even if it died, it was enough to shake the heavens and the earth. He moved his feet with difficulty. His eyes became determined as he slowly walked toward the demon dragon. With every step, his flesh and bones were shattering. However, he didn't bend his knees. He growled, "Since I have the demon dragon's bloodline, I have the right to inherit your inheritance." He didn't know if he could reach Long Mu's place where the demon dragon belonged. Perhaps he would die. But he wouldn't bend his knees again. Long Mu saw this and nodded slightly. Everything that happened next would depend on his luck. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Long Chen didn't pay attention to everything that happened in the dragon graveyard. He left all the choices to Long Mu and Long Yuan. Whether they lived or died, it was up to fate. Buzz. When Long Yuan appeared again, the demonic aura around him had reached its peak. His eyes also had the image of a dragon floating. You succeeded, Long Chen looked at Long Yuan. He still couldn't help but feel happy. Long Yuan bowed and cupped his fists. Then, he knelt down again. Long Chen could clearly feel the changes in Long Yuan. His pupils shrank and he said in a deep voice, "It seems that you and I will be walking the next path together." Long Yuan nodded. Then, he suddenly said, "Master, I still have a request." Long Chen pondered for a moment. He smiled and replied, "I want to accompany you as your master. Consider your initiation ceremony." Long Yuan didn't say anything. He already knew what he was thinking. He wanted revenge. He wanted to return to the tribe and take revenge. There was a flash of gratitude in Long Yuan's eyes. He was originally muddle-headed. Now that he had regained his wisdom and obtained the demon dragon's inheritance, how could he not seek revenge? "Master, I want to go today." Long Chen frowned slightly. He pondered for a moment and said, "We still need to make some preparations. 3 days should be enough. After all, the Hongmeng chaotic primes in the Black Dragon tribe are enough to threaten the two of us." Long Yuan nodded. How could he not know what Long Chen said? However, ever since he came out from Long Mu, the hatred had completely filled his mind. The demon dragon's inheritance had completely changed him. The two of them left the place. Under Long Yuan's lead, the two of them quickly rushed to the Black Dragon tribe. The Black Dragon tribe had already changed. The entire tribe was in the hands of a new leader. In fact, the person in charge was the high priest. For some reason, the new leader had been distracted these days. He felt frightened. Ever since the high priest refused to look for Long Yuan, this feeling became stronger. He shook his head fiercely. He's just an idiot. Why should I feel uneasy over him? When the tribe stabilizes, I'll find an opportunity to kill him. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt the entire ground suddenly tremble. Countless cries of surprise rose and fell in the tribe. Experts filled the sky and rushed into the clouds. He hurriedly put down what he was doing and rushed out with the people around him. That's Long Yuan. Why is he back? Long Yuan isn't dead yet. Who's with him? The two of them dare to return to the Black Dragon tribe? They must be the helpers he found. He's still a mentally unstable person. He's courting death with such a person. As soon as the new leader walked out, he was shocked when he heard the words around him. Immediately, his face was filled with excitement. He never expected Long Yuan to come back. The high priest had ordered him to hunt down Long Yuan. Who would have thought that Long Yuan would send himself to them? This was a gift from the heavens. After killing Long Yuan, he would have no more worries. One had to remove the roots to cut the grass. He led many of his tribesmen and looked at the huge mountain in front of him that blocked the tribe's path. He could not help but frown. It seemed that the two of them had come prepared. The high priest was also standing on top of a building. He frowned and said in a deep voice, "Kill the two of them on the spot." The new leader led a group of people and rushed into the sky. He stared at Long Yuan and shouted, "Long Yuan, you're still as mentally unstable as before. You dare to come back with one person. Don't blame me for being merciless." Chapter 1483. The new chief's eyes were cold. His gaze swept past Long Chen, and he was completely relieved. He clearly felt that Long Chen's cultivation was extremely ordinary, not worth mentioning at all. Long Yuan clenched his fists, full of murderous intent. Black light surged all over his body, and a terrifying power poured out like a tide. "Attack! First take down Long Yuan, this traitor of the tribe." The new chief ordered, and more than a dozen divine lights broke through the sky behind him. Rumble. More than a dozen attacks instantly annihilated Long Chen and Long Yuan. Seeing this, the people around them sneered, thinking that Long Yuan's return today was like suicide. Divine lights filled the sky one after another. But the attacks of more than a dozen people never stopped. The smiles of the new chief and the high priest gradually froze on their faces. While the high priest's face was gloomy, the new chief couldn't help but say in shock, Long Yuan not only regained his consciousness, but also has power that far surpasses his peers. How long has it been? What kind of fortune did he go through? I knew that if we don't kill him, he'll be a disaster. In just a few dozen breaths. The dozen or so people who were attacking Long Yuan's duo also pulled away from them. Their faces were filled with extreme shock. No one thought that after a series of attacks, they couldn't take down Long Yuan at all. Countless pairs of eyes in the entire Black Dragon tribe stared at Long Yuan. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Long Yuan stood in the sky like a demon god. The black light around him rose and fell one after another, and the mighty demon aura stretched for thousands of miles. There seemed to be a dragon's shadow floating inside. The dragon's shadow circled around him, almost blocking most of the attacks for him. Long Chen stood behind Long Yuan with a smile on his face. Seeing this, he couldn't help but nod slightly. Long Yuan's battle strength had almost skyrocketed since he received the demonic dragon's inheritance. Today's battle was a big challenge for him. Continue to fight. If you can't hold on, just say something. Long Chen finished speaking and sat down cross-legged in the air. Long Yuan nodded, and his whole body turned into a rainbow and rushed toward the new chief. His eyes were full of anger. This person was the person he hated the most. The power of Hongmeng condensed into a bone blade in the new leader's hand. He showed no intentions of retreating at all. He bellowed out, "Attack with me." I refuse to believe that he can rival mid-chaotic primes in Hongmeng in such a short amount of time. Hongmeng's art of the origin, demonic shadow devours the sky. Long Yuan took the initiative to attack. Waves of pitch-black demonic aura burst out of his body and transformed into demonic shadows that were similar to his figure. The demonic shadow towered into the sky, and when it moved, it was 100,000 feet in size. With him as the center, dozens of demonic shadows descended upon the person in front of him with unparalleled power. Terrifying shockwaves swept out for hundreds of thousands of miles, causing the weather to change. More and more people in the Black Dragon tribe had ugly expressions on their faces as they gradually retreated into the distance. Only now did they realize that Long Yuan was no longer the mentally unstable idiot that he used to be. The high priest's pupils constricted when he saw Long Yuan using the convergence technique with his Hongmeng cultivation. He took a deep breath as his gaze gradually fell on Long Chen. Long Chen, who was sitting cross-legged, gave him an unprecedented sense of danger. Inside the Black Dragon tribe, Long Yuan was fighting against so many people. Long Chen was sitting cross-legged as if he was supporting him. What was his cultivation level? Could it be that Long Yuan was so powerful because of this person? The high priest pondered for a moment before he waved his hand and said in a deep voice, "Send half of your people to suppress Long Yuan. Make sure to end this quickly. Also, send half of your people to kill the person sitting cross-legged. I want to know how strong this person is." The group of trusted subordinates in front of the high priest moved after hearing the order. This group of people seemed to only listen to his orders. Each of them had a cultivation level of third-stage chaotic primes in Hongmeng. Their combat strength was extraordinary. When half of the people attacked, the power of Hongmeng merged into one and rushed straight at Long Yuan. The terrifying power was like a sharp blade that instantly tore apart the demonic shadow and disappeared into it. Long Chen's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light when he saw this. At the same time, an aura fell straight on his head. Buzz. He slowly stood up. Suddenly, the shadows of dragons soared into the sky around him. He had used the 8-part heavenly dragon art to the extreme. The shadows of dragons flashed. Long Chen did not intend to fight back. Instead, his hands quickly formed seals as if he was not casting a spell. The high priest's eyes were like torches as he stared at Long Chen, as if he wanted to see what he was going to do. His brows furrowed as he felt the sense of crisis grow stronger and stronger. The attacks of more than a dozen people arrived in an instant. The dragon shadows around Long Chen turned into golden light and merged into his fingertip. With a light flick of his finger, blood flowed like a tide. More than a dozen people instantly turned into a rain of blood. Not even their souls were left behind. Hiss! The high priest staggered back dozens of steps. He seemed to have forgotten that Long Yuan was still attacking. His eyes stared at Long Chen as if he was looking at a demon. "You, who are you?" "This is some kind of bloodline technique that surpasses an extremely high level. It's not something that an ordinary tribe member can possess." As he spoke, he seemed to have thought of something. The fear in his eyes grew stronger. Long Chen stared at the high priest with slight surprise in his eyes. He and Long Yuan were both Hongmeng's third-level chaotic primes. If they wanted to come to the Black Dragon tribe for revenge, they needed to have the power to suppress a 6th-level chaotic primes. If Long Yuan had not been focused on revenge, he would have to wait a while before returning. However, since he had come, how could he not be prepared? This bloodline technique was the first level of the Dragon Clan's Golden Dragon Life Protection technique. Once it was activated, it would allow him to possess power far beyond his current level. He would also have to bear an extremely strong backlash from using this technique. However, Long Yuan's battle today was very important. He had just merged with the inheritance. If his thoughts were not clear, he could easily be shackled. This was also the reason why he still allowed Long Yuan to attack on his own even though he had the power. Between his thoughts, the high priest actually flew up into the air and charged into the distance. Long Chen's figure moved and followed closely behind. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, but he was also a little puzzled. The high priest seemed to have guessed his identity. However, he did not seem to be running away. Instead, he was rushing into the depths of the tribe. This person probably had a trick up his sleeve. Since I've used this bloodline technique today, I'll completely eliminate Long Yuan's future troubles. Let's see what else you have up your sleeves. Long Chen's figure disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already following the high priest. At the same time, Long Yuan roared at the sky as if he had gone mad. He held a head in his hand. It was the head of his trusted leader. His entire body was covered in wounds, yet no one dared to take a step closer to him. Everyone present was trembling with fear. Chapter 1484. Long Chen's words were like a gust of cold wind that blew into everyone's bones. All the Hongmeng chaotic primes in the Black Dragon tribe looked at each other, and no one dared to move. No one had thought that Long Yuan, who was like an idiot in the past, would display such terrifying power today. This was especially true for Long Chen, the person who had been supporting him. Everyone had clearly witnessed how over a dozen chaotic primes had been reduced to a rain of blood when they joined hands earlier. Long Yuan stood where he was, and the people around him retreated vigilantly. The scene, which was originally filled with killing intent, turned into a stalemate in an instant. Long Chen's words had already shocked everyone. It was just as he had said. Long Yuan was originally the young master of the Black Dragon tribe. Since he had returned and the new leader had died at his hands, there was no need for them to fight to the death. Not only that, everyone knew very well that today's victory or defeat depended on Long Chen and the high priest. They all knew that the high priest was not going to escape, but to the Black Dragon Mystic Cave. The Black Dragon Mystic Cave was built by the high priest, and no one had ever stepped into it. If Long Chen won, Long Yuan would be the new leader of the Black Dragon tribe. If the high priest won, the entire Black Dragon tribe would elect a new leader. Many people gradually flew into the sky and looked at the Black Dragon Mystic Cave in the distance. As expected, the high priest led Long Chen to the Black Dragon Mystic Cave before stopping. Rumble. The mountain where the Black Dragon Mystic Cave was located collapsed in the hands of the high priest. When the huge mountain collapsed, the high priest's expression calmed down a little, and his eyes gradually calmed down. Long Chen stared at the high priest and frowned slightly. He also felt that there seemed to be an unpredictable power in the mountain. It seemed that the high priest really had a trump card here. The high priest stared at Long Chen. After the mountain collapsed, he seemed to have completely calmed down. He stared at Long Chen with fiery eyes and said in a cold voice, "I've heard that someone in the martial progenitor's land of succession has opened Long Meng's place of succession. You and Long Yuan's cultivations far exceed your peers, and you even possess techniques that are impossible for ordinary tribes to obtain. My guess is probably correct." Long Chen's pupils shrank slightly, and a cold light flashed in his eyes, but he did not answer. This person was quite meticulous. Long Chen stared at the high priest and said in a deep voice, "If you have any other skills, then use them. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't have another chance." Between the words, his eyes gradually fell on the crumbling mountain. The high priest snorted. Long Chen's calmness angered him. Although you have a secret technique, you are still Hongmeng's third stage chaotic prime realm. This secret cave was originally for me to break through to the consolidation realm. It's not a waste to use it on you today. As soon as the high priest finished speaking, the power of Hongmeng surged from his body. The boundless aura turned into a black light that filled the sky, as if it was a formation. For a moment, endless black light connected to the mountain range. The black light intertwined. The high priest's aura began to rise at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a flash, he had stepped into Hongmeng's seventh stage chaotic prime realm. The high priest was shrouded in an evil black light from head to toe. This black light was fundamentally different from the demonic aura on Long Yuan's body. It exuded a filthy aura everywhere. Long Chen could not help but frown when he saw this. He was a little disdainful. Even though this power could help people break through, once used, it would cause permanent damage. The origin source would be completely polluted. But no matter what, the High Priest's current combat strength was already a little troublesome. Today, I'd like to see if your bloodline's secret technique can allow a 3rd stage chaotic prime to fight against a 7th stage chaotic prime. The High Priest's face was ferocious. As he spoke, he suddenly punched out with both fists. Roar! Roar! His fists were shrouded in a foul black aura. There were actually many terrifying monster beast souls that swallowed one after another. Long Chen snorted coldly. His hands formed a seal again, and the golden light around him moved again. The foul black aura and the golden light converged like 2 torrents colliding. Anyone could see that even though Long Chen's power was obtained through a secret technique, it was still extremely pure. Compared to him, the High Priest's power seemed to have fallen. Although there was a huge difference in their spell techniques, Long Chen's cultivation base was far inferior to the High Priest's. Long Yuan also broke through the air at this moment. However, before he could get close, he was blasted away by the terrifying power of the two. He spat out blood continuously. Long Chen and the High Priest's current combat strength had far exceeded the middle stage chaotic prime. Although Long Yuan had the Black Dragon's inheritance and could crush those of the same level and even fight 4th or 5th stage chaotic primes with spell techniques, he was still unable to resist such terrifying power. Their attacks were extremely ordinary. They could not even be considered as attacking each other. At this moment, they were competing with their cultivation strength. The 2 torrents were endless. The terrifying aura almost tore everything around them apart. The collapsed mountain had already been crushed into powder. A few hundred breaths later, the 2 of them finally retreated. Both of them had pale faces. In comparison, on the contrary, the High Priest had a slight upper hand. His cultivation base was much higher than Long Chen's. Even if he used a secret technique, it was still difficult for him to resist. The High Priest did not feel proud because he had a slight upper hand. Instead, his face was pale. He did not expect that after using the Black Dragon's secret cave, he would only be a little stronger than Long Chen. You have Hong Meng's mixed element spell technique. If its grade is higher than mine, you might be able to win today. However, you can only die here today. As the High Priest's voice fell, he suddenly raised his hands to the sky. His mouth was like a giant whale breathing out. Streaks of black light appeared above the High Priest's head. They gradually condensed into 3 illusory shadows. The moment the shadows appeared, Long Chen's body shook violently. His murderous intent instantly rose to the peak. He was very familiar with this power. This was the power of the so-called Saint Sect. The mixed element spell technique that the High Priest was about to use originated from the Saint Sect. There were consolidation realm experts in the Saint Sect. Naturally, they would have mixed element spells of all grades. This was the reason why the High Priest was so confident in his victory. The mixed element spell technique that he was going to use this time must be the highest grade, grade 9. It seemed that the Saint Sect had become more and more aggressive while Long Chen was recuperating. If it were not for the substitute puppet that day, he would have to get rid of the Saint Sect. Otherwise, he would not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Sooner or later, it would become a big problem. Saint Sect, since you are also working for the Saint Sect, it seems that I am in luck today. Long Chen's voice became colder and colder. At the same time, he grabbed the air with his right hand and a long halberd condensed. The dragon shadow on the halberd appeared. The moment the long halberd appeared, the golden light that was produced by the secret technique merged into the halberd at a speed visible to the naked eye. Long Chen's entire body began to weaken. However, the long halberd in front of him released an unprecedented terrifying aura. The long halberd pierced through the air. Long Chen's aura fell rapidly. His entire body seemed to be weakening. Long Yuan rushed forward to catch him. Then, he looked at the high priest vigilantly. Chapter 1485. After Long Chen's attack, he fell from the sky and was caught by Long Yuan. In the distant sky, the high priest watched as the halberd pierced through the sky. He had already pushed his technique to the limit. He saw that Long Chen was no longer able to fight. He knew that as long as he could withstand this attack, today's battle would be over. He would obtain everything from Long Chen. I'm already using a 9th grade chaos element technique. How can you defeat me with a single attack? The high priest roared. 3 streaks of black light whizzed out from the top of his head and swept towards Long Chen like a river. The terrifying power shook the entire black dragon tribe. Crackle. However, a scene that terrified him appeared. The halberd tore through his attack like a hot knife through butter. The halberd instantly pierced through his body and tore him apart. His blood flowed like a tide and filled the sky. How can this be? The high priest couldn't believe what he was seeing. His cultivation was higher than Long Chen's. Both of them had used 9th grade chaos element techniques. How could he lose, and lose so thoroughly? Long Yuan grabbed the air with his right hand. The aura of a 10,000-meter-long demonic dragon restrained the high priest. The high priest was already an arrow at the end of its flight. He couldn't resist at all. Long Yuan's eyes were filled with killing intent. However, he still listened to Long Chen and didn't crush the high priest's soul. Long Yuan restrained the high priest and said in a deep voice, "Master, let's go." Long Chen glanced at Long Yuan and said, "Aren't you going to stay? After all, this is your tribe." Long Yuan shook his head. He had come here today for revenge. Since he had already gotten his revenge, he didn't have the slightest reluctance. The actions of the entire tribe in the past had already made him bitterly disappointed. The 2 of them flew through the sky. Seeing this, the people of the Black Dragon tribe could only sigh. They regretted their actions. Who would have thought that the idiotic Long Yuan would have such strength today? Now that the high priest was dead, the new chief had died, and the entire tribe had suffered heavy losses. What should they do? Long Chen and Long Yuan flew for hundreds of thousands of miles before stopping. After finding a place to hide, he dragged the high priest out. Long Chen asked in a deep voice, "Tell me everything you know about the saint and the Yen tribe." The high priestess looked at Long Chen's cold gaze and opened her mouth after a moment. Even if Long Chen spared him, Long Yuan would definitely not let him go since things had already gotten to this point. If he kept his mouth shut, he would only suffer endless torture. Instead of this, why not just die a quick death? He took a deep breath, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness. Tell me, even though your cultivation is still inferior to mine even with the support of your secret technique, how did you manage to defeat me in a single strike with a 9th grade chaotic prime spell technique? Long Chen looked at him with disdain and replied, "Since you know that I am the inheritor of Long Meng's inheritance, you should know that the technique I use comes from the Dragon Clan." The high priest was taken aback. Soon after, he began to laugh at himself. That's right. He was really stupid. All the techniques in the extreme realm of Hongmeng were judged by their grade. As long as each technique was of the same grade, its power would be similar. But how could the inheritor of Long Meng be included in this list? He couldn't figure out such a simple logic at the moment. There was news about you and the saint, and some even speculated that you were not dead. After all, no one has obtained the inheritance of the Dragon Clan. Over the years, the saint has included dozens of tribes, including the Yen tribe. It takes at least 3 months for the Yen tribe to travel east from here. The Yen tribe had also fallen into the hands of the saint? Long Chen's face instantly turned extremely gloomy. He never thought that the saint would develop so quickly. Although there were very few consolidation realm cultivators in each tribe, it was not easy to control all of them. It seemed that the saint was very ambitious. "Alright, you can die now." Long Chen moved his right hand and crushed the high priest's soul. The matter of the saint made him want to kill him. "Master, there is a brand in his soul." Seeing that the high priest was dead, Long Yuan reached out and caught a black pattern brand in his hand. Long Chen took the brand, and his eyes shone brightly. This brand was the place where the saint stored the blood crystals. The reason why the saint sect was expanding on such a large scale was definitely to obtain the blood crystals faster. In order to make it easier for them to leave their mark on the people in charge of the various tribes. There are consolidation realm cultivators in the saint. If you and I want to be enemies, we have to reach the consolidation realm. The blood crystals are the best shortcut. Long Chen murmured. Long Yuan nodded and said in a low voice, "I know this place. It's also in the direction of the former King's Yen tribe. However, there are 3 tribes there." 3 tribes. No wonder the blood crystals were stored there. If that was the case, these 3 tribes were probably the tribes that protected the blood crystals. These 3 tribes are almost as strong as the Black Dragon tribe. I'm afraid we won't be able to fight them. Long Yuan did not look good. Long Chen nodded and said in a low voice, "Since these 3 tribes are the places where the blood crystals are stored, the tribes nearby will definitely send blood crystals to them." Long Yuan immediately understood what he meant. If they wanted to increase their strength, the blood crystals were the shortcut. They did not have to go deep into the 3 tribes to obtain the blood crystals. With their strength, it was not difficult for them to self-destruct as long as they were not surrounded by chaotic primes level 5 and above. As they spoke, they went straight in the direction of the brand. Long Chen was very worried about the Yen tribe. However, he knew that he had to increase his cultivation level as soon as possible if he wanted to solve this problem. He could not rush it. The 2 of them traveled at full speed for 5 days before they stopped. After some discussion, they went on their own. This wait lasted for an entire month. As expected, they gradually found the teams that transported the blood crystals from the 3 tribes. The teams that transported the blood crystals from the 3 tribes each chose a tribe as their prey. The 3 tribes took the same route when they entered. If something happened, they would not rush to the rescue. Instead, they would rush to the place where the blood crystals were stored as soon as possible. The person with the highest cultivation in the tribe that Long Chen had chosen was a 4th stage chaotic prime. Aside from 3 3rd stage chaotic primes, the rest were all 1st stage chaotic primes. It seems that these tribes are very relaxed. This force is not very strong. Long Chen let out a long sigh of relief. The 2 of them had already set up a spirit array here. It was not difficult for them to defeat such a strong team. You asked me to take out the monstrous starlight array from the 1st level for these guys. What a waste. Long Mu could not help but snort coldly. Long Chen was unmoved. This matter could not be allowed to go wrong. Otherwise, he would not have asked Long Mu to take out the spirit array from the 1st level. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.